All right, welcome to those that may be coming online, those in the commission conference room. Today is Monday, April 3rd. It is 12:24. And we're here to talk about the events on our work session agenda. We'll start with agenda item 1. This is Commissioner Gage 4. I'm joined by Commissioner Bolos and Commissioner Harvey, who will be with us for this work session. So I'd entertain a motion or approval of minutes for the work session held on March 27th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. So we'll go to our next agenda item. We're just slightly late, but this is the discussion regarding grant administration. Scott Park, Stephanie Ebert. Chris, are you involved with this?
No, I'm attending the work session. I have the next item.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay, so two things with grants. So number one, and I believe Commissioner Harvey, you were involved in a phone call last week about Senate Bill 188, the Energy Efficiency Grant Program.
I just met with Bill Roth on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a program that I just became aware of a little bit ago. What it is $80,000, nearly $80,000 to Weaver County Corporation, but also Roy and Ogden would be getting some money on this. That allows us to spin up a program to grant up to $5,000 for homeowners to make energy efficient improvements to their homes. My only concern with this grant is it's $80,000. If you divide that by $5,000 grants, that's 16 people.
Right.
We don't want to spin up this project on our own. We don't want to build this program. What we want to do is, I guess my recommendation would be, we need to fill out a pre-award, basically a application by April 28th, which basically reserves our place in line. And then we have to come up with a program by January of 2024. And my hope is that if commissioners, if you are interested in pursuing this grant, we could fill out the pre-award application now. It doesn't commit us to the grant. But at that time, we would see if UAC or some of these other cities come together and form a program. Just for 16 people, we don't want to take the time and effort to develop a program, build a program, get applications, evaluate applications, and then it's just not worth the time and effort. But if it's part of a bigger UAC-led effort, or, Ogden City or something like that, then it would make sense to participate in the program. So, sorry.
Go ahead.
UAC's gonna do that. They're gonna spin it up. They didn't talk to us about caps on Friday morning. They talked about, I thought it was hundreds of millions of dollars. And then we were already in the pool because we were a second-class county, basically. So 80,000.
25, Roy City would get 76.
Okay, he said cities, some of the bigger cities in
Yeah.
the county. I'm with you, 80,000, I thought we were gonna get, literally, I thought we were gonna get more money than we got home starts last year. So that kind of
Yeah.
is disappointing.
It's not, as far as I can tell, it's not.
Is it for new and existing or new?
It's
Both?
for, it's basically, if it's big enough, if you pull a permit, then you're probably okay.
All right.
But if you're just gonna do a little remodel,
Yeah.
and repaint your bedroom, no.
Okay.
But if you're gonna build a new house or the remodel is big enough, you're gonna pull a permit. That's basically what they talked about on Friday morning.
Yep.
But they didn't ever one time did they ever talk about you only have this much funds. They talked about like in fact, they used the word ARPA and CARES Act money. It was that kind of money.
Not quite that big.
So I think the total program is 550 million, but as far as I understand, that's the total program everywhere, not.
Across the country.
Yeah,
Well, that's okay. Adam Gardner is the guy that was making the presentation. You remember Adam?
I do.
Yeah.
So what's your, so what do you know about UAC? Sounds like.
So
you got
Jerry,
cities involved, everybody else, they should roll it out.
you remember Jerry, from down there, Escalante, who's the
Yeah.
chair of USAC,
Jerry
Taylor?
Yeah.
He said, look, Brandy, we want UAC, we little counties can't, and the big ones, just go ahead and put this program forward. You guys at UAC administer it.
Yeah. Okay.
She said, okay.
That's what we need to do. And then she could just, on the website, if you live in Weber County, we could take the first 16 that met the criteria, but yeah.
Or they could evaluate it and they could.
Yeah, let them do,
criteria.
as far as I'm concerned, they just have to evaluate it and send us. Tell them, you give us the first 16 people and we're happy to pass our funds.
Or it
Well,
might be more.
Sure, if
Right,
it's
I
only
mean,
$2,000
If the
average,
pool's
yeah.
bigger and then there are smaller towns or whatever,
Yeah.
counties that wouldn't have used it anyway, it might.
Yeah.
That's
a
true,
good
I hadn't thought
point.
of that, yeah.
Is it allowed to transfer from cities to county?
I
or-
haven't checked on that. That's the first time. Commissioner Bellis, that was the first time. I didn't even think of that before to see, but I'll look in that to see if it would be something that could be done.
And it's only for, they said too, it's only for foam insulation. They asked the question too, could it be
Really?
for,
Really?
could it be for any kind of insulation? And Adam didn't know, but foam insulation's just around windows and doors.
Yeah.
That's not, you're not gonna use it for anything else much other than that.
So the reason why I'm here today is to ask if you are interested in even pursuing this, and if so, I'll put in the pre-award information sheet, which basically reserves our place in line, and then that buys us until January.
Yeah.
Either have UAC or ourselves figure out what we want to do with these funding options. So I didn't want to submit it on behalf of the county saying we're interested unless,
That was asked too.
yeah.
It is not for commercial, it's only for residential.
Residential.
And they even asked if we could use it to do the county buildings, like refurnish, and the answer was, I believe, no. They
So
kinda
residential, basically new construction.
Or pulling a permit, so I could remodel my
Yeah.
80-year-old house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I think that's the way to go.
I'd like to still go follow through with it.
Yeah. Well, there's no sense in not getting our place in line.
Yeah.
So,
I just didn't want to do it without your permission, so we'll fill out the pre-award sheet, we'll get it submitted, it's gotta be submitted this month, and then we'll follow up with UAC to see what they're going to do, and I'll bring you back a report
That's
later on.
With all due respect to Scott, I think he said April 15th on the call. I don't care, whatever it says, maybe they're using that extra time to process it internally.
It could be, but if you guys are okay with that, I'll do it this week.
just do, it. Yeah. So
I'll just get
you
it done
okay,
off my
Commissioner
list.
Bowles?
Yeah.
You call Bill Ross.
Yeah.
You got to go ahead.
Okay, and then the second part of this is, as we talked last week, we are rolling out the Amplify software, which is our grant management and compliance software. As
Yeah.
part of that, we want to ask for your help, commissioners. As part of rolling out this, we're actually trying to kind of kill two birds with one stone. I can't say that anymore, right? Feed two birds with one stone. We're trying to accomplish two purposes. One is to centralize this as we continue to grow. We want to be able to have a unified system for researching and applying for grants and tracking grants. But second, and Steph could attest to this, we have some departments that don't fill out grant reimbursements very often. And so when they do fill them out, there's mistakes. And we end up requesting duplicate payments for the same expense, and other things like that. And so what we would like to do through this with the permission commissioners is basically roll down a change that every grant reimbursement request needs to come through the clerk auditor's office for review before it's sent to the awarding agency.
Okay.
So that would be at Center of Excellence, Children's Justice Center, Public Defenders, the Attorney's Office, Engineering, every department. And so we're gonna leave the Health Department and the Housing Authority because they're not part of the county technically.
Okay, so that's my question. So health department wouldn't be included.
No, but I'm not worried about them
Okay.
because they have really good controls over it. And
Yeah.
Adriana, if
Okay.
anything, I would just delegate it out to her anyway. Adriana Pruitt, she's really, really good over there. And the Housing Authority, we already provide a level of service where we're doing this anyway for them. And so it's really just all the other county departments. We just would like your permission and your backing when we go to all the departments and say, even though you've done this for years, you now have to change your process and send your stuff to the clerk auditors for their approval first before it's allowed to be submitted to the federal agencies. We really need to clean up what we're sending to these federal agencies. We need to make sure that our controls are good, because if we get an audit finding in one department, it affects all departments.
Affects our ratings.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Does it duplicate their work? I guess, how is it uploaded into this system? Are they gonna have to duplicate it?
No,
Say-
no, it won't duplicate the work, although they will think that it does a little bit.
That's what I'm really asking,
But if you
Scott.
look at the amount of work that's done in
That's
a
it,
year.
well, they think that, yeah.
No, so they'll, instead of submitting their spreadsheet straight to the federal awarding agency, they'll send it to us. We'll review it. We'll make sure that the revenues and the expenses are appropriate, that we're not drawing down for expenses we've already requested for, that the expenses they're drawing down matches our general ledger. Now, we already do that reconciliation. We do it at the end of each year. And and part of the reason why we do it is just time and resources. We don't have time to get to all these, but it's high enough of a priority that it needs to be bumped up on the priority list. And so Steph, this last couple of weeks, she's making dozens of corrections to grants where we've not done it right, and we can't afford to do that. And so the departments may be inconvenienced a little bit when they're filing their quarterly report, but then they won't have to deal with Steph. And she worked with them for 2 weeks at the end of the year, so.
That's the way we have to message it.
Yeah,
We're helping you out.
we're helping you out now so that there's not as big of a reconciliation at the end of the year. So yeah, it'll be a little more work each quarter, but it'll be less work at the end of the year. So I think overall time savings will be great
And we'll have it right.
and have it right.
Yeah. That's the main
Boy,
point.
I'll say,
I just, out of 34 grants that I looked at, and not including the health department, 19 of them were wrong, either misapplied to the wrong year, the wrong department. As Scott mentioned, there were 2 this year that had duplicate reimbursement requests.
Hmm.
There was one last year, like $172,000 that we had to repay.
Do we had to repay? Oh,
Yeah, so it's pretty high priority, I think.
Well, it's becoming higher of a priority. Our volume of grants has increased substantially, and I think that's the biggest reason. And these departments that don't deal with them very often, you just need a skill set. You know, if you deal with it day in and day out, then you get better at it. And that's what we want to do, is just make sure that the people that are dealing with them and have the experience and skill with them are the ones that are looking at them and verifying them, and then helping the departments to submit them.
good.
So that may be something, if you're okay with that, I'm gonna roll that up, excuse me, to the departments, but I'd like to have your backing on
How,
this as
how
well.
soon do you plan on rolling this out?
So I'm going to merge it with the Ampla Fund rollout so that they don't feel like that they're in trouble or anything like that. We're just gonna say that, look, here's the new Ampla Fund process, and this is how we're gonna do it, and it's all gonna roll through the clerk auditor's office. And so we're gonna start that right away, within the next, if you're okay with it, within the next few weeks, we would be contacting all the departments to let them know this is how we're gonna do it.
Commissioner Bolus, you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Commissioner Harvey?
heck, yeah.
Yeah, sounds
Another
like,
selling point is that if we're buying the software anyway,
Yeah,
we might as well all be using it.
and it'll help us with our compliance, and we'll have those controls in
Yeah.
place. So I think it's going to be.
well, we're helping them even though they may not understand that directly.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, it helps the county, and I would say if you have any pushback, have them get a hold of whatever commissioners in their portfolio.
Okay.
And we'll get it squared away.
Okay, I just, in case you hear some rumblings about it, I want you first to be aware of it and then be supportive of it before I.
We got your back.
stir the pot. Okay,
Yep,
that's what I'm asking. Okay,
you're covered.
thank you, I appreciate it. That's all that I had.
That's it, wow. Okay. Let's go to our next agenda item.
Well, you're moving them through, I'll say.
Oh, we're not slow down here. We
No,
got snow.
huh?
I'll try and go.
Cause you haven't-
Yeah.
Okay, discussion regarding open public meetings. Have I gotta watch that video again?
Once a year, right?
Oh, no, this is the new and improved version.
Oh.
The end of the disappointment. This is why I'm here, if I can watch it. This is what happens when I
I've
close
only
my.
seen this half a dozen times.
Oh, no, you haven't seen this one, cause I
We
just
haven't
made
seen
it. I started at 10 a.m.
Oh, gee, here
I
we
printed,
go.
well, this morning I printed off my statue and I highlighted everything that I wanted to bring up. I was like, this is what I always do. It's so just boring. If you think it's boring for you, I have to give this over and over and over to multiple board meetings.
Just remember,
Yeah.
you chose the profession.
I did, and I love it. It's fun. So, but this is what happens when I close my door and go into airplane mode at 10 a.m. this morning, is I start the draft, and this will be my test group of what may be a future training for open and public meetings.
Really?
I like where this is going.
Well, and I try to put in a little bit of lighthearted humor in.
Have you got that picture of Bronco in here on this one?
Well,
With the long hair?
I've seen him look like, just like that, just.
Yeah.
I actually quote him in here.
You don't know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. You don't know what.
Yeah, I quote him in here, and I think this stems from the last open public meetings training I gave. But I find that
Is this who deserves my slumber?
who disturbs my
Who
slumber.
disturbs my slumber?
So I find that just a little bit of lighthearted humor has, when taken appropriately, like a medication, has the ability to disarm and open up an environment to have open and sometimes difficult
You
conversations.
might wanna sell this to the state because theirs are just put you to sleep in 10 seconds.
Well, there's gonna be typos in here, I'm sure, and I hope I got my animations.
We're the
correct,
guinea
but
pigs.
Within 2
Yeah.
hours, so anyway.
Are you gonna do this tomorrow at our directors meeting?
No, but I was hoping to come to your director's meeting to talk about something else, but I can chat with you after that.
Okay, we'll talk
After
about it.
the work
Okay,
session.
got it.
See, I'm already quoting you guys. Open meeting, yeah.
is him.
So I quoted, Commissioner Jenkins. The last time, he said, you attorneys are always giving us such a hard time. And I have to say that Commissioner Jenkins always liked to give me a hard time. But he was also very appreciative anytime we would approach him about an issue that we had to, difficult things we had to talk about, open meetings laws or any other issue. He was always very, very approachable. So we're not here to constrict you. We're hoping that what this will do is bestow upon you phenomenal cosmic powers that you can impress all your commissioner friends with at UAC with all the trivia information that you're gonna know. So, but before we begin into the meetua, though, we gotta talk about,
That's the quid pro quo quality.
I had way too much fun doing this.
those. Yeah.
Policy statement.
So when looking at open meetings law, in fact, most any act that you have, there will be a statement of legislative intent as to why we are actually, why the legislation was actually passed. And here, one is, we have, and one that's obvious is we have the responsibility of conducting the public's business. But the legislature states that it's their intent that the state, its agency, and its political subdivisions will take all their actions openly and conduct their deliberations openly. That's at the very beginning of the open and public meetings law. Definitions. There's lots of them, but there is some good stuff in here. In fact, I'm gonna show you guys a definition that I had not come across before. I just must have passed it. And I actually was on the phone with the state auditor this morning to make sure I got you the most up-to-date and correct information. Yeah. So these are the key terms that I have found that I like to usually highlight in every training. When you convene a meeting, it's when you call together the public body. So in this case, it would be the 3 commissioners, the chair who calls that public body together to discuss or act upon a subject over which you have jurisdiction. That would be your county legislative powers. Meetings include the convening of a public body, and they also include a workshop or an executive session. So this work session is subject to open meetings laws. The next one, this is probably the most important definition when it comes to a 3-member commission. And it's also one that is, it's subject to I don't want to say abuse, but there's a lot of gray area in this one. And Cortland and I often will debate this one, even more than the getting consideration for selling property one. So meeting, it does not mean the convening of a public body that has both legislative and executive responsibilities. So 3-member commissions, this will be applicable to this body. You're not going to be subject to the open meetings law if no funds are appropriated for expenditure during the time the public body is convened, and has to meet one of these other things. The public body is convened solely for the discussion or implementation of administrative or operational matters for which no formal action by the public body is required, or that would not come before the public body for discussion or action. So now sometimes these are hard because legislative and executive functions, they often seem to cross over. And you have to ask yourself each time, well, are we going to appropriate funds? And is this something that's going to require formal action, or is this something that is going to come before the public body for discussion or action? If those apply, the best thing to do is to make sure that it's on a noticed agenda, properly noticed agenda, and take care of it during a regular commission meeting or a work session. So any questions about that? we're gonna be talking about this one again.
So that covers about everything we do.
It comes close, and I was to say, if you're to a point where you really wonder, is this administrative or is this legislative? There
Yeah.
is nothing wrong or inappropriate with erring on the side of caution that this should be on an open, in an open meeting and on a noticed agenda. If it's in the gray, I always tell other people, just to avoid the appearance of impropriety.
Right.
And go back to the statement of the legislative intent is that the public's business is done in an open and transparent manner. So I would suggest erring on the side of caution. Some other definitions, this one just states that you are a public body, the 3-member commission. This is the new, well, not a new definition, but the one I came across today, which might present some flexibility to you. And I confirmed with the state auditor that this is the case this morning, but with a caution to be careful with it. Quorum means a simple majority of the membership of a public body, unless otherwise defined by applicable law. So under a 3-member commission, you have to have 2 to convene and have a quorum. However, quorum does not include a meeting of 2 elected officials by themselves when no action, either formal or informal, is taken. So the example that I went over with the state auditor's office today is, say 2 commissioners wanted to go to lunch together. That would be permissible under the Open Public Meetings Act. But again, make sure that no formal or informal action is taken. I would say, and no, it's so hard to regulate these. It's more of a provision that you have to be self-governing with, to remind yourself, like if something comes up that really should be in an open meeting, it's so easy to just say, you know what, let's just put that off for the next work session, the next regularly scheduled work session, and then take it up there.
Okay.
You might lose a couple of days, but it's important, I think, to default to having the meetings be open. And if you have questions as we go through this, just let me know.
So it really comes down to informal. So your suggestion is if some of the items that we address in work session might be appropriate to bring here before we have that discussion.
So if you, items on your work session, so say that again, sorry.
I say, so if I'm in talking to Commissioner Bowles, we have a discussion on something that I'm saying would be informal. Let's say an appointment to a particular board or whatever. Should that come to work session? No action would taken. We're just discussing, you know, like we do on planning commissions back and forth.
So you're gonna have some flexibility with that because
Okay.
no action is being taken.
Yeah, no action's taken.
And those conversations are okay, but just keep in the back of your mind that if you're sitting there deciding, well, we're gonna appoint this person, then let's say, let's put the brakes on and let's take this and put it on a regularly scheduled commission work
Good
session.
to know.
That was the question I was gonna ask, actually.
Yeah, because that's about the only time I would see.
That's pretty informal, and it's more of just like,
Who you like.
Who do you like?
yeah.
Yeah, no action's taken.
Yeah.
It's like,
Who
who do you
you
like?
who you don't, who you like, who you don't.
Yeah,
I think
That's
that's just
okay.
fine, and the statute allows for some flexibility with that, because it really is difficult with a 3-member commission that has both executive and legislative functions.
and I'd rather keep it like that rather than start taking that into a public session where then you're, you know,
Yeah.
would be forced to say, okay, you know,
Then you're talking about the character of the individual.
yeah,
What
what do you like or what don't you like about this individual? And they're listening online.
Right. So, and if it does get to a point where you need to convene and you want to talk about those sensitive things, we'll go over the closed session provisions that allow you to do
Yeah.
that. But just keep in the back of your mind, and this is self-governing mostly, is that if it gets to the point where you feel like it's crossing that area where you're talking about taking action, just put pause
Yeah.
on the conversation
Okay.
and then put it on a work session
Makes
agenda or a
sense.
commission agenda. So. All right, so many rules, where do we start? Well, the one I will be here to remind you all the time. But this is something for Chair Frohr to know, is that the chair of a public body, it is your responsibility to make sure trainings happen. And that includes every board you sit on. If a board is organized by policy, by resolution, by rule, by ordinance, it is subject to open meetings laws.
Right.
They all have to have this training. One of the easy ways to deal with this is going and doing the state auditor's training, because you're gonna get a certificate that you can use as showing compliance with the training, so that you don't have to sit here and listen to it 100 times. But at least once a year, we will provide this training to the commission.
Does the state require once a year?
Yes.
Can you offer this training and count for the state?
And count for the state.
So we don't have to do the state one and this one, we can just do one or the other?
Mhm.
Cause I don't know about you two, but I sit in these open meetings trainings probably 17,000 times a year.
But none of them have Genie.
Yeah, well,
This
my-
is this
the
is the
thing
best
is,
one you said.
with my training, I'm not gonna be able to give you a certificate
Why
as
not?
far as the,
Why not?
that particular
What if we get
board.
together in a formal session like this and we notice it properly and then we say you can give a
Hey,
formal
listen,
certificate?
we're out of time.
This one I can give you a certificate, but when you go to mosquito abatement, you're just gonna have to sit through it
Oh,
again.
please, that's the one.
One way around that, though, is if you do the state auditor's training,
You can use that.
you can use that certificate for other
I
boards.
think you should submit this.
We'll see. I gotta do some proof, some editing.
I agree. Okay.
But always start with the presumption that the meeting is open and it can only be closed for specific reasons, and then your work sessions are subject to the act. We don't need no stinking agendas. Actually, you do need agendas. I like, so when am I supposed to provide notice and what, of a meeting, what is included in the supposed agenda? 24 hours notice in advance. There are some exceptions to this. If there's an emergency, you have to still provide notice, but it has to be reasonable notice based on the situation, the circumstances, as much notice as you can possibly give, but the default is 24 hours in advance. Now, be mindful that there are other statutes out there that may require additional notice, such as public hearings for land use ordinances. They're going to require notice further in advance to give an opportunity for the public to prepare and make arrangements to attend a meeting to provide public comment. Talked about an emergency. The notice, it's got to have the things like who, what, where, when, and why. So you got to have the time, the place, the anchor location. But this one, the bottom one, reasonable specificity, that is the important one. We have to let the public know with reasonable specificity as to what is going to be included on the agenda and the topics you're going to be discussing. You don't have to include everything, but we've cautioned boards in the past to not include things like an other category and then try to get that in a catch-all. That does not provide reasonable.
Well, we don't have,
specificity.
we
No.
have that so infrequently.
Yeah.
Not a lot, yeah.
Yeah, it's something that has really been weeded out. You see it creep up every once in a while with some other boards, but most of the ones that we've been working with, you don't see that anymore. So what happens if you forget to put an item on the agenda and you really, really wanted to discuss it? What would you say the answer would be?
Wait till next week.
That's a good answer.
That's what we normally do. I think
Yeah.
you'll find that rather consistent in our planning.
First, well, there's a couple of things you can do. One is we'll go back to the definitions of a meeting. Is it administrative? And go through that steps to determine, are we going to expend public funds for this? And is it something which no formal action by the public body is required, or that would not come before the public body for a discussion or action? If it actually is administrative, you're welcome to actually to go ahead and discuss it. But if it is something that the commission would vote on, or it would require formal action and public funds will be expended for that, then please do what you said and default and go to the next scheduled commission meeting or work session.
I think in most cases, it's better to delay it a week rather
Yes.
than get questioned on.
Absolutely.
And if something comes up that is important to talk about, it's probably gonna be something that's important to talk about in a week.
Yeah.
Which,
And if it really is critical, call a special meeting.
yeah, we can always do that.
Just
Yeah.
Give 24 hours and talk about it
Yeah.
the next day.
Yeah,
So, but what if it wasn't you and someone else brings it up? If a member of the public brings up an item, the law allows you to discuss it, you just can't vote on it.
Okay,
Let me ask you this one. This is kind of a fun little trick question.
okay, Harv, you got this one.
Okay, got it.
What if staff want to discuss something with the
Oh.
commissioners during one of your
yeah.
quick commercial breaks?
Yeah. What about that, Harv? What do you think?
Well,
Turn your chair around.
does it require, I want to focus. On the word, it's special. It depends if we have to take action on that item or not.
So you're going back, you're doing what you should do. You're going back to see if it's an administrative item. And if it is, and you're on a quick break, you can talk about that. If it's not though, please.
If we have to take action, then we have to notice it.
You do have to notice it, but I would also say, just even though a member of the public can bring up an item and you can discuss it, I would not apply that to members of staff. It is, so, and I'm guilty as charged. And Cortland violates this. No, he doesn't. But
Not court, but on court.
when we come up here to these work sessions and we finish up an item early, it's so tempting for staff to say, well, why we've got you
Why I've got you
here,
here.
can we please just discuss
Yeah.
this? The
Yeah.
answer is no. Unless.
Hold
one
on,
of
unless
those
we're
exceptions
taking action
apply.
on it or not,
Well,
right?
unless it's an administrative item.
Right.
So,
Chris, can you give us an example of each?
so I had Stacy call me this morning, and she gets a gold star for today, saying that there's going to be a discussion on Thursday to discuss stormwater. From what I gathered, what she was saying is that there's no action, there's no funds it's just building a plan or just getting a handle on what's the situation. And it's not gonna come before you for a vote in the future. It seems purely executive.
Doesn't meet any of those. This is for informational purposes only.
Yeah, so that was.
Not only, yes, but
So
other people.
my advice to her was, it doesn't need to be noticed for Thursday. Now, is it gonna hurt? No. But does it need to be noticed? No, I don't think so. So, and I was so happy that she did that, because it's great when staff feel comfortable to reach out to us and ask questions as
Yeah.
to whether or not this should be a noticed item on the agenda, or if it's appropriate to bring up. An example of something that would require, someone that came up to you, and let's say I came to you and said, I have this contract, I wanna finalize these last few provisions, we go ahead and do that. Well, by ordinance, all county contracts have to be approved by the legislative body, so it's going to come before you for a vote.
So, okay. I want an example of when we should be doing it in a public meeting, when we might be doing it during a commercial break. Can you give me an example of that?
When we should be doing
Like
it.
when we're at a commercial break and somebody on the staff says, for example,
So what, an example would be, is like, say there's a land use issue that, Sean or Rick, and I'm not saying that they have done this, but say, that's one that comes up before you most often.
Right.
That's something that's gonna come before, the county legislative body in the future. It could be a development agreement, it could be a rezone. And say you're in between items, and someone brings that up, and I don't know if I'm addressing this appropriately, but that would be an example of where you would say, no, actually, can we meet individually about this, or is it okay? Or let's just put this on next week's work session, or if it really is critical, let's do a specified meeting. So that would be an example.
so something that we normally see as its own agenda item.
Yeah, if that's a good point. Sorry, I was missing.
No, you answered my question.
That's a good point. If you normally see those types of discussions on a regularly scheduled work session, that should be a big indicator that it should be on there, and you need to wait until it's actually listed on the agenda and to just hold off discussions.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. It's Sunday morning. And people are flooding everywhere out west.
Okay.
And we need to spend money to cut a road. And Commissioner Frohr calls Commissioner Bolos and says, hey, we got a huge flood out here. We gotta cut the road. I need another vote. Just wanna make sure you're okay with it, because this is gonna end up costing us $150,000. And so, we're not, That's an emergency situation.
So going back to what has to be on agenda, the default is 24 hours, but it's Sunday and it's an emergency situation. So you can call an emergency meeting. You don't have to give 24 hours, but you have to give reasonable notice. So in that situation, what would you say would be reasonable notice?
I listen, when you get in those situations out there and people are flooding, reasonable notice is. All you're gonna do is you've got a guy out there with a crack hoe and they're gonna put the shovel in the ground and cut the road right there. So reasonable notice may be none. We can go back and report in a meeting like this on a work session, hey, look, we had an emergency situation come up. We had to cut the road at 2,700 or whatever it is.
So it's probably better not, what I hear you saying, it's better for me not to call Commissioner Bolos and say, I'm just gonna authorize you to cut the road and then I'll take my, beating later if I need to, but at that point in time, I haven't violated state law.
Well, if it really truly is an emergency situation, I would just call up the other two, convene a meeting, but make sure you're taking a record of it, follow,
Okay.
the minutes so that people can document the action taken. And then if it really is, you have no time otherwise, then we will deal with whatever consequences
That's-
later.
I'm glad you said that
But I
because
think it's better for all of us to in an emergency. For
Yeah.
all of us, three of us to convene, so
That's-
that so that we have a documentation,
That's-
rather than a phone call to me.
Yeah,
or a
Look,
phone call to Jen.
and there's on
and
this.
usually that's what we do.
On this side of the table, there are sometimes, they're gonna get a situation where one of the three of us may not even have time to call the other one. It's a life and death situation. You gotta make this split second decision. And we hope that we're empowering, for me, I hope I empower my people to make those. And that they know that I'll back their play after it's done. Where you can call the others. And that's one of the things I think I've enjoyed recently in the last several years. Is there's been a respect in this group where we have taken a pulse.
Yeah.
But there are situations that happen that are life threatening or. I don't wanna say life threatening, but property threatening, whatever. You have to make a split second decision and we're not gonna, for me, I'm not gonna, I'll worry about the consequences later. Well, it doesn't happen very often, but it's gonna happen. It's not an if, it's a when. And those things happen when nobody's around, they're in the middle of the night, they're on a weekend, they're on a holiday. A rock falls off and hits the divide or it kills somebody. I mean, it's life and death situations all the
Yeah.
time. You gotta shut a road down for a week.
Yeah.
Something like that, you know what I mean?
Most of those, I think, are gonna come under your executive function. You're
I
already
agree.
gonna have funds that are allocated and people have authority to expend those funds for those emergency type situations. So if we go back and we look at,
It wouldn't be an appropriation. That's all money that's already in there.
it's already in the budget.
Yeah.
So if we break down this definition, what a meeting is not, where you have both executive and legislative. Oh, what time is it, Commissioner Frorick?
It's 1 o'clock, but you've got 5 more minutes.
Ooh, you want me to continue with this?
Sure.
Well, let's break this
Yeah,
down.
go ahead.
So, no funds are appropriated for expenditure during the time the public body is convened. Well, you've already appropriated funds, say, for to mitigate a disaster. See what's already been approved in your budget. And the public body is convened solely for the discussion or implementation of administrative or operational matters, for which no formal action by the public body is required, or that would not come before the public body for discussion or action. So if it really is executive and it's not gonna come to you anyway, then the act is actually not gonna be, you're not gonna be subject to it. So,
I would agree with that.
and plus there's, not to say to disregard the law, but the remedies for violating an open public meetings law is one that you subject being reversed or having a court, invalidate the action that you took and would be subject to attorney's fees. So closed meetings are a little bit different. They have a little bit more stiffer penalties.
Okay,
So we're gonna start flying through this. Oh, about the quick commercial break, pausing the meeting, I came across this. And the way I read that, a recording of an open meeting shall be a complete and unedited record of all open portions of the meeting from the commencement to the adjournment of the meeting. So I would say, even if we stop to take a break, that the recording still continues.
and so if we're on Zoom, we need to leave Zoom on.
Well, if you're using Zoom as your mode of recording,
Yeah, which
then
we
I would
are, I
say
think.
yes. Or if you're using a different device to record, I just wouldn't stop.
What if
Can we
we
shut off the
sponsor?
video?
You what?
Can we shut off the video?
Yeah, it just has to be
What if we
recorded.
sponsor?
Yeah, sometimes, listen, we go to the bathroom. We stop and we go to the bathroom, we break for 15 minutes. We just pause. We don't do anything.
Well, it says of all open, so of all open portions of the meeting.
To me, that, the way I read that, and maybe Brandon has a different interpretation, that is distinguishing between open and closed.
I guess I'd have a different interpretation. I would say an open is when we're actually discussing an agenda item. And because, you know, I go back to when we saunter at the legislature, everything, nothing's on record, nothing happens. When we come back in session, then it's an open meeting.
If you're keeping a separately recorded device, there's nothing that's gonna prohibit you from stopping the Zoom recording and putting the mute button on and the video. So,
Okay.
I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that this would go more towards when you actually have a quorum convening, and then that would be considered open portion of the meeting. So if you have saunter, people are
That's what I'm
leaving,
saying. So,
you no longer have a quorum present, and that might stop the open portion of the meeting. However, for practical purposes, anybody can come up with who's not present can come up with reasons why you might have stopped that recording, or maybe think, what have you said between 10:15 and 10:20 that we don't know of? If you have the recording going anyway, then nobody has to question it.
I get it.
So
Kinda keeps
maybe it's
you
not
on
required by
track.
law, but at least you
So
could
that
say
protects
during
you.
that 15 minutes of silence, maybe it was boring, but we didn't say or do anything.
okay,
we
so let them
shouldn't have.
listen to 15 minutes of, you know.
Sauntering.
Sauntering.
Yeah,
Turn
so,
off the video.
Yeah, I'll just turn off the video and
right,
let them listen to.
maybe just to be safe, it'd be good. to
All
just keep it
right.
on.
All right, we're gonna
I
start
guess we'll do that.
plowing through this. Closed meetings, we get to talk about all kinds of stuff. Not really, it's a very limited menu. You can talk, these are probably the most common ones that I see. So we did this twice last week: character competence of an individual, strategy sessions to discuss collective bargaining, pending or reasonably imminent litigation, strategy sessions to discuss the purchase or sale of real estate. This is probably, the last one's probably gonna come up when you when you evaluate the remodel of this building. You're gonna have to look at security measures, personnel devices, or systems.
Yeah.
Most of those will record, you do not actually have to take written minutes in a closed session. You do have to have a recording though, except for very few things, which is the character competence of an individual, and I believe also security personnel or devices or systems. You just have to sign an
So
affidavit.
two
saying
cases
that's
where
what
we
you
don't
did.
have to record.
But yeah, and be mindful that everything you discuss when you're in a closed session needs to fall under one of those provisions. And it really needs to be under the provision that you stated on the record in your motion as to why you are going into closed session. It's very tempting, and it can be very easy to get off track in a closed session, but this is the one area where there are criminal penalties attached.
Well, maybe we ought to just state all of them before we go into closed session.
You what?
Maybe we just state all.
You have to be specific.
Commissioner
Yes.
Harvey's good at that. We
Yeah,
just give him a list.
You have to be specific.
Well, as
Um,
long as it's covered in there and we state it all, right?
Well, I mean, I would say it was actually something that you intend to discuss.
Okay. I was kidding.
And if it, well, no, I mean, there's always a way to address it, though. If something does come up and we actually need to go into closed session for another reason, we'll just go into closed session for another reason. And the reason why I think you want to parse them out is because one requires a recording, one does not.
Okay.
So the one that we went into closed session last week on, I could have done it under two. I could have done it under reasonably imminent litigation or pending litigation, or we could have done character competence of an individual. Well, these are very sensitive matters, and we are concerned about privacy issues, so we go under the character competence of an individual, so I don't have to do a recording
Got it.
of it.
Well, so let's say we do that. We go under the character and competence of the individual, but then so-and-so shows up. We need to close session on real estate related issues. So then do we need to go out and
Go
Yeah,
back in.
just go out and just do
And
another,
that's-
just do another
close session?
closed session.
All right,
Yeah,
Please, it's so important. I dealt with this in my former life.
yeah.
it's so hard to get off track. I mean, so easy to get off
It's easy,
track.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I just remember many times going,
Yeah.
we can't talk about this here.
Yeah.
I mean,
but and the procedure
so
might
easy.
seem cumbersome or annoying, but it really is designed to protect you. And the question is, well, will we really get caught? There's a Supreme Court case of the United States in the last couple of years where this very issue went up and it was discussing whether the court should release information that was discussed during a closed session. Well, the court decided that the individuals went into closed session for improper reasons, and now the entire country knows what they were talking about. So
Really?
the statute allows for a judge to look at this stuff in camera, and if it's determined that it was improper, it will be released out to the public, and it draw a lot of attention. You can get in trouble. We talked about that. Actually, you can, it's a Class B misdemeanor to violate the provisions of closed meetings. So this is one of the more important ones.
Does that include a state of intent behind that action? Or, so if you accidentally violate the Open and Public Meetings Act versus intentionally violate the Open and Public Meetings Act, does that change whether you're criminally liable or not? 'Cause someone might do it without knowing, and then later on find out it was a mistake.
I am glad you asked.
Good question.
I'm going to love you.
I got you.
Either that or some, oh, right there.
Yeah, I'll take it.
So how do you remember all of it? I'm gonna be there to annoyingly remind you
Good.
and tell you what to
Yeah.
say and do. No, but in all seriousness, this can be very tricky. Please just reach out to us and ask anytime. We're happy to work it out, any of those issues. So,
It's knowingly and intentionally. So if you do it by accident, you don't know that you're actually violating the Open and Public Meetings Act. There's no criminal penalty for that.
so when one of us chimes in and says, we probably shouldn't be talking about this right now, and then the conversation continues, that's probably where you're gonna run afoul of the statute.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And
Interesting.
thank you
That's
for
it.
letting me answer.
Well, that was one of the better public meeting educations.
yeah,
I've
it
had.
is. You speak to the state.
well, I
That
gotta,
should be the official.
I gotta,
training.
I gotta tweak it quite a bit. But anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Brandon, you up for our next one or not?
I was just here to enjoy the show. He showed me the slides before he came, but now I have to
Good
see how
slides.
it actually pans out.
I was all sad because I didn't hit share my screen, but nobody was watching anyway.
Oh.
I don't know if we talked,
Doggone it. You know, what's wrong with, they shoveling snow up there? What's the deal?
I think so, must be, yeah. Everybody's shoveling snow, yeah, and their roads aren't getting plowed, so there you go. All right, let's bring, we have 1 o'clock regarding the roundabout. The 1:30's been canceled. Brandon, you want to tell them to come in?
Yeah.
1:30's been canceled.
1:30's
We
been
have
canceled.
to,
just for
we may
your-
have to saunter, but leave the recording on.
Turn
just to
off the
protect
video.
For
ourselves.
30 minutes, yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be interesting. It'll actually only be for you. There's Charlie. Who else you got coming?
We've got a few others. We got Gary and we've got Brett Slater from UDOT as well.
All right, welcome.
Right on. How's it going?
Good to see you. All right, welcome, everybody. We're here now at 1 o'clock. We're just a little delayed this morning. This was a discussion regarding the 12th Street and 4700 West Roundabout. Gary Meyer, Sean Wilkinson, Bill Ross, Scott Park, Charlie Eworth, Rick Grover, they're all here. And we have our UDOT representative.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so who's leading this?
I can start
Gary?
it off, commissioners, and the reality of it is, I kind of wanted this to be an open discussion with everybody, so.
I don't know if we can. I don't know that we listed it correctly. We may have to wait until.
We'll come back in a week. We got our attorney here.
My teenagers.
Yeah, you're here today.
The rules.
So
Christie did a great job. I got my eye.
I'll start off by introducing our guest. I want to introduce Brett Slater. He's the program manager for UDOT. Brett's phenomenal. Glad Brett's here, and we appreciate you coming today, Brett. And then, obviously, everyone else here knows each other, so I'll keep that short. But what I wanted to do is discuss 2 issues that I wanted to touch on. Number one is we've talked about in the past Our plan all along, and talking with Charlie and Rick and Sean's been involved in this, our plan all along was we're hoping to see a roundabout at the intersection of 4700 West and 12th Street, right there at Country Corner.
That's State Road.
3 legs of it are state. 1 leg is ours, the west leg is ours. West, that's where 12th Street. begins.
After, wait a second,
Wait, on 47, I'm talking about exactly 4700 West, 12th Street,
And 12th Street.
4700 State, and
Uh-huh.
12th Street State.
Going east.
Going east is state,
Right.
going west is ours.
going west after the first 1180 feet though, isn't it? Doesn't UDOT have the 1180 feet from 4700?
I don't,
No,
I
it-
think
it
our
goes
right of
that
way
way.
starts right at the
So,
edge,
you may
west
want-
right of way.
I'd like you to check that.
I'd be happy to.
So I guess
Yeah.
what I'm asking you is,
So.
will the
whatever
roundabout
goes
be
well,
on
plow.
county
So,
or
yeah, we may
state?
have some right of way.
Or
so
both.
that the
It'd be
county
both.
maintains.
All right,
It'll mostly be a state
intersection.
roundabout.
Okay.
But we'll have.
I heard that
Part of our-
UDOT owned
Okay.
1180 feet. from
If we do it right in the
4700
future.
going west.
really?
Well.
Why 1180 feet? I don't know, quarter of a mile.
So we may own some property, we own property, the county maintains a lot of different spots, but we do not plow past the intersection.
No, we understand, but as far as ownership of the dirt's what I'm interested in.
Fair enough. I'll check into that.
Do they even get snow out there at the Banana Belt? part of the county?
I mean, they just
A
get
little bit,
water.
but it melts.
Yeah.
really quick, really
No
quickly.
kidding.
Not Scott Conway,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, really.
Okay,
All right, go
so,
ahead, Gary, sorry.
sorry about that. I can't write and talk at the same time. So our plan all along was to do a roundabout right there at that intersection. Now, that kind of spurred this conversation into motion because UDOT has done a signal warrant. It warrants a signal for that intersection to improve it from a 4-way stop to a signal. In response to that, they contacted us to talk to us about what impacts we would have and how it would impact the signal design and whatnot. So that's when I first started the conversation with UDOT. Well, hey, we would like this to be a roundabout. And so that brought us to that part of the conversation. Once we get done with that, the second thing, if we have time, I'd like to talk a little bit about the funding for the widening of 12th Street east of there, from 47th easterly back to 1900.
Okay,
And Brett and I have had some conversations about that, and we recently got some funding awarded from the state legislature to widen that. We'll tee that up as that for the second part of this conversation, if that's okay. But let's get to the roundabout
Okay.
first. So Brett, I'll let you take on from here, if that's okay.
Okay, so, when Gary first brought this up to UDOT, we kind of laughed at him a little bit. We're not opposed to roundabouts at certain locations. The roundabouts, have their place and they have their function. Roundabouts work very well when you have 4 lanes that are somewhat consistent in traffic. So, this is where we're at on that roundabout. We do have a signal warrant. We have a signal project. We're actually running 3 different projects right now on 4700. We have a drainage project to fill in the slough.
The open channel from
Open channel.
12th Street down to the Walker Slough, the one Scott's been blowing us up about.
okay,
From 12th Street to the Walker Slough, that's that one.
yeah.
So, okay.
That's one project.
So are you
So
working
gonna
on that
pipe
now?
Or what are you gonna
We're
do?
gonna pipe it.
Okay.
And
You're
that-
just, you're cleaning it out now, but you're gonna end up piping that thing.
Yes,
Are you cleaning it out now?
no.
So that,
Oh.
what they'll do is they're gonna jack and
So
bore a
you
new
guys,
pipe.
so we are looking at, and we are, so I'm not sure where our maintenance guys are cleaning today. We are looking at a lot of our open channels to make sure they are clean. This is one of those that, what's really interesting is all UDOT needs, for the roadside ditch would be about this much of a ditch right there. We're collecting 12 feet of water. So that open flow was, the purpose of that open flow was for irrigation purposes, for home purposes, drainage purposes, not to collect water from the state road. We do maintain them. Usually what happens is the homeowners will go out there. I know that slough or that open ditch very well. They burn it once or twice a year. I, do not know if our maintenance guys are out there trying to clean it right now. We have been, as you can imagine, we have been in snowplow. Our maintenance group has been snowplowing 24/7 since
Yeah, we know
December.
that for a fact, yeah.
We are worried about flooding, watching different areas, and when they get free time, they do go clean areas. But that's one of those, we have a project to try to maintain or try to close that up, which will be a good thing. When you close those ditches up, it's good for us. It's in the long run for some of your folks out there, it will cause some water issues once you close these open channels up. Because the purpose of, for the road, you can actually follow this all through Weaver County, especially in the western part, as new subdivisions come in, and if we close these open channels. The farmers back in the day, there's so much alkali out here in our area, you know this, we put a ton of fill drains in. When you come and close these pipes up, you are not allowing any more of that water get into these open channels and getting to a slough. Now where does that water go? It actually just raises that water table just a little bit. So good or bad, it just happens. But we do have a project to close that channel up.
You
Which
do
will make it
still,
for safety
you do still arguably get some flow around the pipe as well too. 'Cause
in the
when we-
gravel.
When we put these
In the
pipes in, they bed them in gravel. A lot of times, I've seen pipes opened up where there's as much water flowing in the gravel as there is in the pipe. And so you'll get the benefit of that as well too.
But yeah, but I wanna make sure, Gary, we gotta make sure that pipe's low enough that was designed by your predecessor to take a lot of that water out 12th Street and 4700, and then going west, all that water flows from west to east there, I think.
So the flows of it go from, the piping of it will actually go underneath 12th Street all the way to the east side. It collects it from there, and it turns it in. So the purpose of that pipe, is more, once you use it for a road purpose, then it's deep enough to be able to have flow all the way to the slough. But, and then if there's land drains, as you're digging into it, you try to discover them, you try to tap them in.
So you'll tap those land drains
Yes,
in.
you find them.
Yeah.
A lot of times, we did that on 4,000. A lot of times you don't find them all.
Yeah.
And that's,
So how far,
okay, so that's.
how far north and south are you gonna go on 47?
But that was a different project. That's just one project. We're closing that open drain.
Okay,
Second project we're putting left turn lanes in on 4,700, both legs. So right now it's,
oh,
so right now you show up and it's a through left and then a right turn lane. And so we're putting in a turn lane so we actually can disperse that traffic a little bit better. Then we have the signal project. We're going to combine the signal project and the left turn project into one project, and we will deliver them as one package.
okay.
And that happens, when you gonna start construction on that, or are we talking about doing a roundabout?
We
instead?
are not, so
So the roundabout's out?
No. We are going to build the signal as an interim. What we're coming to tell
Oh.
the county, if the county really has plans to do a roundabout, the thing that they would like is we are asking the county to go do a traffic study out there, to put a VSIM model together, modeling that intersection, taking into account your traffic patterns up to the year 2050. So that encompass the traffic out there for the future development of that industrial park, so what's gonna happen is once a new school gets built, you're not gonna have that Fremont traffic, which is really how a lot of this got warranted for a signal anyways. So now, we're just out there discussing it out there. Roundabouts function better when all four legs are even. You're gonna have a very predominant movement, an east-west movement, which is not as conducive for a roundabout, and the size of it needs to be fairly large because of all your truck traffic. That's what your VSIM model will help us discover. And then we know what a signal costs. We're spending it on that location. So if we want to change it out to a roundabout, then we look to our partner, Weaver County, to come with the majority of the roundabout funds, because we would have it as a signal. And a signal is going to function there most likely better than a roundabout in that location. So now we're putting a roundabout in for other factors other than an operational factor.
Okay, got it.
But the state, we're not gonna come out and say, if this is your desire, and this is kind of a gateway, and you wanna have some landmark and some beautification there, absolutely, we'll partner with you. We'll still bring a little money to the table when you're ready to go for the roundabout, but the majority of that project would be on the county. We're not coming back asking for more money on the Huntsville roundabout. The state is swallowing a very, very large pill on a roundabout that is costing us probably about 6 times more than what we thought it would cost.
Really? How much?
So we're gonna be 4.5, 5 million when we're all set. They're gonna be $1 million in wetland mitigation alone.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So when you do wetland mitigation, and the county, we went.
There is
we looked at-
wetlands there, I agree.
A lot. And so we're just at a half acre of wetlands we gotta mitigate for. Which you think, well, fine, I'll go buy a half of an acre of wetlands. Well, no. If you're gonna mitigate for half acre, we're gonna mitigate for almost 2 acres.
Yeah,
Because of the
3 to
ratio.
1 or 4 to 1, yeah.
And then if it's currently wetlands, then it's a 6 to 1.
Oh, is it? That's probably currently wetland.
So we get some of the wetlands we're gonna mitigate are 6 to 1, right? Cause the land that your mitigation, so where your wetland bank is. So say our bank is this square. This part is already deemed wetlands, then that's a 6 to 1 ratio. If it's not, then you're down more into the 3 to 1 or 4 to 1 ratio. So then so that's how you play with that. So we're looking to buy one of the lots out of that new subdivision is what we're.
Oh,
looking
in
at.
Sage Creek or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, it looks like that'd be our best option.
Is that subdivision platted already?
I think it is.
So
It's
that's-
platted.
It's
Yeah.
Huntsville City.
Oh, yeah,
so
they're
that's
starting,
why
they're
I'm not
putting in
sure
pipe
the
right now.
status.
Yeah, I was really kind of disappointed because Huntsville City allowed 2 little flag lots in a really interesting location.
Really, that's
Yeah.
Huntsville.
So, but,
Hmm.
so that's how we're playing. So roundabouts can get kind of pricey. That roundabout, that one also would not function as well. It's very similar to this one. It has 2 predominant movements. People going up to money, people coming back out, right? That's your predominant movement. In the summer, you get some people going out to the point. So what we end up doing there is we did a free right. So if you're going up to money
From
from,
west to east,
Yeah,
so to speak.
yeah, we're gonna peel that traffic away. You'll never enter the roundabout
Oh,
and you'll be able to just go straight up the canyon. What that does
Wow.
is that saves your roundabout for all that other traffic that you don't have to mingle that traffic with it.
so it's a right. So if you're coming from the south going east,
If you're heading north, you
Yeah.
go east.
you're coming from the south going north.
Yes,
You're going up, turning east.
Yep.
Free right.
Yep.
That's right. Okay,
and so you'll peel off.
which is the majority of the traffic in the summer.
It is. So we're doing that to.
But also, what about coming from Causey or Monty and coming down and making a left?
You're gonna enter this, so then now that will be our predominant movement. They will enter the roundabout.
That's where all the backup is.
That's where
Yes.
the backup is. And then in the
On Sunday.
summertime, they have those boats coming out of the point.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you got, in the summertime, you have it both directions.
that's right.
You don't have
Winter,
a
not
free
so
right,
much.
you don't have a free right coming from the point going
We do
on
not.
to.
so
It
this
didn't
will
warrant
force a merge there essentially
Yes.
on that traffic. And
Okay,
But that was neither here nor there. That was just kind of, roundabouts can get kind of pricey,
Mhm.
especially how large they need to be.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So if UDOT, warrants a signal there.
Yep.
Why are we talking about a roundabout?
So the
Is
plan.
that something that,
Great question.
Yeah,
The county
it's something that the county wants.
For what reason?
The general plan is asking for roundabouts instead of traffic signals. at
because
most
they're prettier?
locations. Beautification, I think, yeah, gateways, but most of those major intersections where a roundabout would be warranted is on state highway.
Yeah.
And that's both Ogden Valley and Western Weaver, both of them, the highway plan is to put roundabouts instead of signals.
Okay, so you're talking about the expensive roundabouts, which I think I understand, but is it become even more expensive because of the truck traffic that will be going east and
Yeah,
west?
it's just gonna make it
It's gonna be
larger.
bigger
Yes.
and,
So the worry with this roundabout is the one on 12th Street and 4700 is would we impact the canopy? Would we impact the gasoline bays? You know, if you get large enough that you have some
Uh-huh.
shoulders and different things.
well, that could be, if you're 4.5, 5 million up there, you could be double that out west.
We think it's gonna be cheaper. just
Probably
because
less.
We don't
No
think we're gonna
wetland
have the
mitigation,
wetlands.
and there's
Yeah.
no right turn.
We wouldn't have the right turn, we wouldn't have the wetlands.
Okay,
It just depends on how it sits and what property you take. So do we end up hitting, if you have to buy a home,
depends on which way you go, east or west.
that's right.
Yeah.
So,
You kind of have to shift it a little bit, one of the.
but you also wanna
Oh,
see,
yeah.
we, as a state, we wanna see it we wanna see that it's gonna function. So before we even would entertain this, we would need the county to
Yeah.
produce a model.
But you're gonna put the light up first,
We are,
Regardless.
regardless.
so.
So
yeah.
if you are looking for a model, I mean, what does that look like with the school not built yet and the
You can
school
project,
traffic?
you can project. what
I
the
mean,
traffic
because
will be.
you're right, that's all the northwest.
So you would have, what you'd end up
north-south
doing is
traffic.
you would go out and you'd project what kind of build out you'll have out west over the next 30 years.
And keep in mind, commissioners, I apologize,
No.
but I interrupted. We're talking at our industrial mega site, the industrial site around Wade's Dairy area, plus all the subdivisions that we've had conversations with developers up till now. Those will all funnel right through this intersection. And so they will be predominantly moving from the west to the east. Because you'll either have a business center right there just east of where this intersection is, or they'll be going even further east to the freeway or even into Ogden. So
And to
It'll
project
be-
that with
It'll
all,
be east-west traffic, no question about it.
Yeah.
most definitely.
Yeah.
Commissioner.
we'll have to project that based on our current plan and the rate at which we're approving rezones, if we are approving them fast. I would suggest if we're gonna do that kind of projection, we look at the growth rate of West Haven. I think that's probably a little bit more analogous with, the future of Western Weaver, which they're one of the fastest growing communities in the
Well,
state.
That all depends on sewer, one thing called sewer.
Yep.
West Haven have to have sewer,
Yep, you're right.
Western Weaver does not.
Correct.
And if you've been to the Weaver Central sewer meetings, you saw what the forecast was,
Mhm.
which is now everything west of 47 is categorized by Central Weaver as Weaver 2, which means that's a 30 to 50-year plan for sewer.
Okay.
So I don't, with, especially this year with the water, you're not gonna have 5,000 people out there putting in septic tanks.
No, in
So
fact,
there's-
the health department has made it pretty clear they don't want to
So
approve
what
any
I'm
more
saying,
septic.
without sewer, you're not gonna have the growth that you might expect.
That's right, I agree. And right now, we're only seeing those rezone applications in where sewer
Yeah.
can be.
Right,
You're
so the sewer will dictate where the growth is. So I'd say that's where you need to concentrate. And see really how much usable acreage can be serviced by sewer out there.
Let me ask you this, Brett. So if the signal goes in and the county wants to put a roundabout, why would you not be willing to participate in the roundabout after you've already invested in signaling the intersection?
So, I mean, especially from Rob, why it is that we don't wanna shut all the doors, so we come in and there's some road work that we would definitely participate in. Some of the stuff that we could help with, but yeah, it's not advantageous to us. Once we get a signal up there, what would be more advantageous is Gary wants to talk about future widening of 12th Street. If you put a signal in, that we end up one day widening out for that signal to function for a 5-lane on both legs, that would be conversations. But if the city, county absolutely wants to spend the money, then we would go back and we would look at what the state would wanna participate in at this location. You are correct, it would be minimal. Once we spend the funds to put the signal in, and the signal needs to go in now.
Right.
We're quite a ways out before the roundabout, we talked,
Yeah.
it might be a 30-year plan.
Yeah.
The signal, we could have, we're looking to have it up. We're in design, so we're looking, it might be this year.
Really, for the signal.
So what's the discussion? It seems like it's so
They
far in
wanted
the
me-
future. I'm just curious.
They wanted me to come in and explain our position on it.
Okay,
So I guess the answer to that question is, are we going to be targeting roundabouts in the future? Are we gonna stick with our plan, at least on those intersections? What we do here might help us set the stage for future intersections as well. Are we willing to put money aside at some point in time to actually build a roundabout? Or do we have enough political capital with folks at the state and at UDOT to have them do that, like they're doing up in the valley? And we've got at least one other intersection we know warrants a signal that they haven't built the signal for.
where's that?
That's the one in Eden, the 4-way intersection.
All
And
that, but we wanted to do a roundabout there over by the Maverick.
That's right.
Correct.
And that warranted 5 years ago. So I can't imagine it's less now.
So that brings up another question, Brett. Would there be an instance where the county would be able to get a roundabout instead of a signal?
Yeah.
Just because we want it, if the timing's right? Or the
Yeah.
signal always go in because that's,
No, it's so, okay, so like the one up there in Liberty at the Maverick. It'd be what would help that roundabout going quicker is the county comes in and participates with those costs. So UDOT has a certain budget that we set aside for signals. And so you take a signal project, and this is how the one in Huntsville's playing out right now, is we've had a signal pot, and say they have 750,000 for a pot. I end up trading out HSIP money and combining it with transportation solution dollars to put a roundabout in a location that the county had asked for. There was talks that the county was going to help us with our wetland mitigation. We went and looked at several sites. It just did not work. We have the question in right now to our environmental group, whether or not we could do a wetland mitigation outside of the valley. If that's the case, there's some other Weaver County sites down here that we would love to use as our wetland. They initially told us no. So we walked into a project where our initial estimate was a little bit less. So we start our project, we're gonna see it through. The other signal up there by the Maverick that needs to go in, it will still linger and not get put in until we can find the funds to support the signal funds. And that's where the county, where we're asking to put something quite a bit more expensive than what you could put in. That's when the county, if you come and help, that makes it a signal go in, or some type of a treatment go in a lot quicker. Not all locations are well suited for it. The one up in Huntsville, I think would Maverick would function really well. I guess that Liberty.
I think that functioned very well.
I do.
And now's probably the time to look at that too for future, as some of that Old Town Eden or New Town Eden develops.
It's all,
Now's the time to put those easements in place. I mean, the store supposedly is going in.
Yep.
So let's not have to go back and buy that dirt, is what I'm saying.
I have a question for you about the store. Have you guys had conversations with the store folks?
I just heard they're putting a new store.
I've seen quite a bit. I can ask him.
They're not zoned where their property is. And
Where? So
and
the
I don't
store's
know
going
if
away
it's-
from the corner?
It's going to the other side of the road,
Supposedly moving it east.
on the east side of
But I-
158.
Yeah, well, I thought there was a commercial on that side. Okay. That's good to know.
There's a little bit on the corner.
Yeah, right. Okay, you're right. It's just a
Tiny
small,
It's just a slight problem, isn't it?
that's a little problem.
I've heard that the site's all designed and everything,
Hmm.
but I haven't
That's a
seen
shame.
anything yet. Sorry, I don't mean to.
Okay.
He's gonna get mad at us if we talk about something else that's not on the agenda.
Is that
But-
legal?
Let's go back to, is it administrative, and let's go through the annoying test.
But related is the roundabout right there, which we, as new development comes in, we would exact
Yeah.
for a roundabout.
Well, we're talking about roundabouts here, so I think we can make the jump.
And frankly, at that intersection, and Brett, I don't know if you agree, I think folks before you mentioned that they could probably fit a roundabout within that right of way. It's a
That
smaller
way,
roundabout.
Yeah, you're not looking at near the truck traffic or
Yeah.
No.
the vacation traffic
Yeah.
that we're looking at the other one.
That's mostly local, other than the ski resort traffic in the winter.
And ski resort traffic usually is cars.
Yeah, it's cars.
Right? You're still not dealing with.
So have you got an estimated cost for that?
We do not.
Okay. And then, since we're talking about 12th Street,
So keep talking about your roundabouts for just a second, Commissioner. So look, for future things, if the county really wants roundabouts at a certain location, what the state would appreciate, or our desire would be that you come, you say, here, we've done this model, we've done this projection. This is what we think it's going to be. This is what we think it's going to cost. So we have a pretty good feel of putting in a signal, of what it's going to cost.
Yeah.
The right of way takes. One thing the county also needs to be aware of, especially commissioners, is roundabouts are good, but they are not very conducive for active transportation. So your roundabouts
Right.
are not good for bikers or walkers.
that's true.
So it's something you gotta consider in where you're putting them. And there's some things you can do that they should consider, and especially where we're really trying to work towards that a little bit more, be a little bit more conducive to active transportation.
Especially out west, that's a part of every conversation.
Yeah,
It is very much.
yeah, it's conversation both upper and lower valleys, so. So what's the status of our funding for 12th Street from 1900 to 47?
I was told last week, so Gary just said something that I was not aware of. I was told that it did not get approved by the legislature.
Oh.
It was not funded.
Hmm.
We were looking through the bills, but I was told by Rob White last week it was not.
Really?
It was-
47 to 1900? I was told it was.
Yeah.
That's what I was told as well.
I was told Schultz put it in his bill,
So I was told from our director that it was not, because we had heard during the session it was,
but yeah,
and we just haven't found it or seen it, or it hasn't come down to Rob yet. Because I thought it was.
better give Schultz a call. Get him on the horn, okay?
So it was,
What he promised us.
Yeah.
this is what Rob White told me, and so this is what we know right now. There's some promises made from UDOT to Representative Schultz, but the bill did not identify, it really would have helped if they just would, from what I understand right now, I might be speaking completely out of turn. What I understand right now was not identified and said, you will spend X amount of dollars on 12th Street from 1900 to 4700. It was just a wink, wink here, UDOT, you'll take care of it. The problem is with all the other demands, what type of funds are coming towards that? A lot of people said, well, throw some transportation solution at it. Well, they're decreasing our transportation solution allotment this year and every year projected for the next 4 years.
Okay.
So it's kind of
Well,
problematic of knowing, okay, where do we find those funds to make this change? We are looking, because we were told, Rob was told that we made some agreements.
Well, that was what I was told too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if there was no intent language in the bill that came out, then we might have a little. He said, she said, okay, well, that's good information.
I'll just come out.
Commissioner Harvey will cure that real quick.
I think it's a better idea. I don't know if it's, but you have the numbers to support you, but I like the feel of a roundabout. Especially at 12th and 4700 more than I like lights. Soon as we put a light in out there, we're gonna do lights everywhere. We'll end up having to do it roundabout. Everything you said today makes sense.
With the lights going in regardless.
Mhm.
So it's gonna come about us later on.
It's gonna all
You
land
guys,
in
not
our
me.
lap later. All will land in our lap later.
Yeah,
So well, that'll have to be impact fees go.
but
towards
that's a big
I don't think impact fees can.
lift.
I can
That's a
look at
huge
it.
lift.
Mhm.
Can I just ask, so the $3.5 million, is that what we're seeing for this, plus the property we have to buy in order to get it to fit?
I would assume it's going to be less than that.
Yeah, you're probably 2.5, but we can do some.
How much
checking.
money is the light gonna cost? What's this project with the lights gonna cost?
So the left turn was a certain dollar amount. Signal projects are usually running in the ballpark of, if we just come in and have to throw up a signal, you're about 600 to 700,000.
Mhm.
Scott Park, 600,000 to 700,000 for the lights. So if we all of a sudden say we wanna do the roundabout right now, we could get 600 or 700 towards it.
Oh, yeah.
We could, or is it too late? I thought
No,
that was,
We would, but we would have to cancel our current 2 projects. Because that would completely postpone them, and
Cause you've got projects 2 and 3 tied together.
we do.
gotcha.
Well, I don't think we wanna do that. We gotta get that drain in.
So the drain's separate.
The drain is separate. He's
The left
talking
turn.
about the left turn and the light, 2 different projects.
Okay. So the
There.
drain's separate.
The drain is separate.
That's a third project.
Are you gonna have to
Okay.
do any right of way acquisition for the left turns?
Yeah, we're going to have to. Very minimal, but I think it's,
I guess we could have that discussion.
Well, when we rezoned 5 years ago, before you were here,
The
Dave,
corner, I remember that.
I wanna say this very deliberately. I got a telephone call. Now, keep in mind, this was before you got here, so this would have been 5 years ago.
Yep.
I got a call from the owner of every corner. I don't know what they projected to the outside people, but every corner supporting that to change that to commercial, not to C3, to C1. That zoning to C1. So I find that interesting. And I talked to Costesso, I talked to Rousey, I talked to Dan, whatever his name, I don't think he owns it anymore.
That's Dan
Dan
Paul.
Bob,
Dan
and
Bob.
then the owners of the fourth corner also called me. And said, yeah, I think it's great, you know, let's just, yeah,
But they all wanted commercial.
they all wanted commercial.
Which you did.
Yeah, which we did, and and they've knifed me in the back ever since.
So Commissioner, that roundabout there at 47, it may function, but the county would still need to put a piece in, so your track, it's gonna be interesting whether or not roundabouts. So we have a lot of signals, and we try to keep our signals and the operation of the signals at a level service B or better. But we have some that we'll walk into an F, for certain parts of the day in an AM or a PM peak. And they usually clear out, usually within a half hour of that, after a hard peak. And usually what that means is you have to sit for 1 or 2 cycles. And at the most, I don't think we have any spots right here, especially when you're counting that you're sitting in for 3 cycles. But when a roundabout fails, if you have crazy predominant movement, they do not heal as quickly. You don't
Right.
recover from a roundabout, because what happens is that traffic coming into it just starts backing up farther and farther. You don't have what it just, so you have to, so that's why a model is really important, that we know what track is coming in for the future, and we do have an industrial park that has in the next 30 years, most likely something will happen out there. So we
It will.
don't account for that truck traffic coming through that roundabout.
Well, and that's why I'm not 100% on board with the roundabout for that reason.
Yeah.
That
The
truck
signal's
traffic,
plan to go with
Yeah.
the signal. It sounds like we have a lot of years.
I mean, you're gonna have a lot of trucks coming. And we don't like, but we have a substantial amount of trucks now. Today, but
Yes.
if you times that by more, 50 to 100 over the next probably 15 to 20 years.
That's right.
And
What
then
we
we
need
take
is,
away a lot of the north-south,
Then, yeah.
at
it's-
least for now, until the development, builds out, then it
And it's
makes it
actually
a
really
balance.
nice to see.
I
It's
don't
too
know.
bad, the signal actually should be in right now, that Fremont traffic is actually backed up past the
Mhm.
tracks
Oh, I know.
daily.
And you're
Believe
gonna,
me,
you're
I
gonna
know.
lose that though next year.
Yeah,
Or
well,
when's the
When
high
is
school?
it?
2
20?
years, 25.
Five.
Okay, 2 years.
So if we can get something in,
Yeah.
at least we've helped for at least one more,
Yeah,
that next year of school traffic that is in. We're lucky we haven't had an accident there.
Oh,
I know
no, it's-
I had seen kids stopped on the tracks because that's where they just weren't paying attention. All of a sudden, that's where we got.
yeah. No, I couldn't
Oh,
agree
boy.
more.
well, if UP was doing it right, they'd be parking their trains out west over the causeway instead of over there anyway. So
Hey, that's
I
not
wanted to
on the
throw that
agenda.
in. Good point, thank you. So here's the thing. We appreciate the light and what you do. Really, I think though, shouldn't have this been funded to be a full overpass for all that truck traffic coming in? East and west? A full
We are
overpass
currently-
is really what I thought.
We
should have
are,
been
we are
funded.
doing a rail study with the help of Weaver County right now, analyzing all of our rail crossings. It's just kicking off. We are anticipating, it's just, the thought is what it's gonna really point a finger to is your rail crossing on 12th Street, but not there, but somewhere else.
Well, really, it shouldn't be an overpass going east and west. The overpass should be going north and south and goes up over and then over the rail too. And so that's.
On 4700.
4700.
There's just not enough traffic that really warrant that, but you will, if your town overpasses one day, we're gonna need the county to really help us go push to get us an overpass out
Where?
here. Here in
Sure, you're gonna need to run for.
The one by,
legislature.
Yeah.
by the sheriff's.
That's where you,
Speaker Bolos will get that finished for us.
but we're doing a study there. Or, sorry, we're doing a study all through Weaver County, analyzing our tracks.
We get truck numbers up quite a bit. That'll push West Weaver corridor a little faster. And so that could be a good alleviation on this particular intersection as well.
Good.
My understanding is once that goes in, the West Weaver corridor, that'll take a lot of traffic off of 4700. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and especially if we can bring the West Weaver corridor a little bit further east, we're gonna grab a lot of that traffic that would come up to the freeway. That is, so as that area gets built out more, and you do have trucks going out there, once we get the West Weaver corridor in, it's gonna give them the ability to connect to I-15. quicker than
So you
having to
wanna-
drive.
You wanna move it east.
We're gonna go back, yeah, right now, I think there's plans of 65 through Hooper. We're at 51, and then it dives a little bit further west. The closer you have it, so that area, there was a concept done. But there's no
Yeah.
environmental study completed.
When we gonna get the EIS done on that, by the
So
way?
the legislature did fund
That's,
the next phase of the West Weaver corridor. That would take it up to 55.
So Roy, 56, 55.
You have a schedule on that?
They put money towards that, so we're gonna start that probably in July.
but that's only on the EIS.
That's for it'll be an EA, yes.
Okay.
At least it brings it into Weaver County.
It brings it into Weaver County.
So we had a meeting with UDOT
Great
a couple of
info.
months ago where they basically said, you don't want an EIS yet.
Really?
Yeah, because the
Right.
traffic numbers are
Right.
not going to
They
merit
don't
it.
warrant it.
Right.
Okay.
Remember, they told us that. We don't wanna do that yet, because all that'll do is push that Western Weaver corridor further east. We wanna wait till the traffic
That's,
So
goes further west.
Commissioners, there's a couple of things on that particular subject, which will play into roundabouts in the future as well. The folks on the west side, who are looking to develop, they're willing to donate the entire corridor. And that entire from the railroad tracks south to the river crossing where it's previously planned. That's just free land right now that, landowners are willing to donate in order to get that highway there. The other thing is I've been working with Stephanie a little bit to see if she can find some funds for our own version of an EIS. So we would follow all the federal regulations and guidelines on doing an EIS, identify the best location where
Yeah.
a roadway can go. And then we can work with landowners on the west side of the tracks, which we've got one very big landowner right there along that corridor, looking to develop as well.
The west side of the track.
Sorry, east side of the,
east side.
I said everything wrong, on the east side of the river, excuse me.
River, yeah.
Thank you, to put that corridor there as well. So if we do like a county highway over there until UDOT's ready to take off, then any new EIS they run along that alignment is a lot more likely just to run along the same alignment that we did ours on, because we've already impacted.
Well, I think that's what needs to happen, because we know the state's gonna be, based upon our previous conversations, probably 20 years out, right?
Yeah.
Maybe longer.
And if we had a highway, that's gonna help guide the direction of your
Yeah, we're-
document as well too. So,
Yeah, we may wanna consider that. Gary.
Gotcha.
All right, well, great information.
So it sounds like, commissioners, I guess where we're at,
We're stuck.
well, where we're at is if we really wanna go roundabout now on 12th and 47th, we're gonna have to get a model put together. And we would have to hire somebody to do a model for us.
Yeah.
So
But it
that-
sounds like it doesn't, like, that may not be the best option, so this
Correct.
study would hopefully tell us whether it was even a viable option, because if it looks nice, but it doesn't function and it fails, then what's the point of putting it in there?
Right.
We would.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I think the responsible thing at this point to do is put the light in now.
Yeah.
And then when the West Weaver corridor comes in, wherever it does out west.
Yep.
Then when that comes in and moves all that, then put the roundabout in there. I mean, we won't know what the traffic will be because of we'll have that's, I think, we'll have to
What,
face it.
what you're saying is, Mike, it's premature to commit on the roundabout. I think we need to go with the light. We need to make sure that east-west traffic, we're gonna have a change in traffic flows the minute the new high school's done,
Yep.
so we've got time to think about that.
In the meantime, as development occurs around that intersection, we'll make sure we have
Yeah,
enough for a few.
But as development takes
Yes,
place,
Charlie, that's critical.
yeah, let's not have to buy any dirt.
And I think whenever any other possibilities going out further west, so as it goes from 1150 to eventually 900 south, wherever there could be another area, needs to be another roundabout,
You're
maybe
gonna-
between west, something like that.
You're gonna see that in the Black Pine Development Agreement, where
Yeah.
they'll give us
Okay.
space so we don't have to buy later. as
Yeah.
well.
I think any of those major
Up in the valley
intersections. we
too,
need
yeah.
to-
That's who we are. That's who we are.
That's good.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Brett, I don't know if you got an invite, I don't know if Rob got an invite, but we'd sure like to have a UDOT representative here on Thursday morning at 8:30. I can't remember. I think
This
Rob,
week?
this Thursday, this to talk about, it's a flood update from all the different agencies.
I don't see UDOT on that. I just barely got that last week, Commissioner, so I'll be
Okay.
happy to share it with
We
Brett.
need
Will
to
you
have
share-
a representative here.
Share it with Rob, I'm actually out of town.
Oh, good for you.
So,
For you.
and will you make sure Rob has it?
I will, absolutely.
I think we've got
Oh,
everybody else.
And
You know what? I misspoke. He's right here, our white.
That's it.
Yeah, perfect.
So I thought we invited him. Okay, thanks, Brett. Anything else?
Nope.
I'll be right back.
Okay, all right, thanks for coming, great information. And we will verify where we are on that 12th Street funding,
Yes, that'd be, yeah,
the interesting debt.
I just was told it was not.
I'll
Well,
find.
that wouldn't surprise me, but it wouldn't surprise me, it was a,
It would have actually, for
Backroom
us in the
deal.
region, it helps, if they truly, if legislature's saying. If they're saying to build something, if they will earmark it and put it in something and identify those funds, it makes our job really. easy.
Yeah, but sometimes it's cryptic, isn't it?
sometimes that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
Coming out of the committee that ran all that.
We've heard from several different sources it's there. I don't know where it is, but it's coming.
Okay.
Just letting you know.
Perfect, thank you.
Carlos will know.
Here. Here, 2 seconds. I
And
want
he
you,
and Carlos have made an agreement.
I want you guys to. hear
Carlos
this.
probably cut the deal.
Ready for your confirmation number? Sure, go ahead. Okay, it's gonna be A as in apple. Okay. B as in Peter. B as in Peter. B as in boy. No, I mean B as in Peter, not B as in boy. I said B, not B. I said B, not B. Okay, whatever. Okay, then it's gonna be the letter H. What was that? H. As in, H. H as in Harry. H. Oh, H. Yeah, H. H. Okay, then finally gonna be the number second. The number second. Sir, I cannot understand anything that you are telling me. Second, well, second, would you like me to repeat that for you?
Where did that come
I
from?
don't know, but I thought you guys had to hear
Who
that.
sent you that, Jim?
Oh, my wife did. She works for JetBlue. That's the kind of the story of her life.
Commissioners, you've got 2 o'clock that I scheduled to talk about the park for Black Pine. Sorry, I just wanted to let you know, I haven't had confirmation that they'll be here, so you
Okay.
can feel free to remove it from the agenda.
So we don't want to, we can cancel it.
Yep, I'll move it to next Monday.
All right,
Okay.
is that okay? Okay, take it off. All right,
All right, this one probably pretty quick.
or let's get started. All right, so we're gonna go to agenda item 6, the 145 session. Discussion regarding tax sales procedure. Lynn Dakota Worth is here. Portland's not here, Ricky Hatch is not here. Lynn Taylor, go ahead.
Right, so, one of the clerk auditor's responsibilities is the annual tax sale. And over the years, there's some sections in county code. On the back of the paper we gave you, it's all the reference stuff. Filtering down, the county can establish some procedures, and the way some of them are written aren't super clear. And we'd like to clarify them and maybe
Okay.
update some things. So in talking with Portland about it, he said in order to do any changes to county code, we need to get at least one commissioner on board with exploring it. We haven't written up anything specific. We want to do a deep dive and do some cleanup. And then one of the things, well, let's see on the 3 items that I've got here. For example, preferential interest and priority interest are used interchangeably, but neither one of those are really defined.
Okay,
We also use the term possessory interest, which is
Okay.
also not defined, so we're kind of doing a best guess what that means. And with the priority interest, is a term that we've been using, it can only be granted if a property is not economically viable to anyone that does not have a priority interest. So priority interest is defined as either possessory interest, which again isn't defined. At least not in our county code. We did find some legal definitions. But also, what's termed as an abutting property owner. So if the way we've been applying this is if it's not really economically viable, if it's like a 2-foot wide, 20-foot long strip of ground that's in somebody's fence line, we've been giving them priority interest in that. But there's also the question, what we'd like to explore and discuss is whether there should be any priority for, say, if there's a business that's actively using it and it's up for tax sale, do we give them dibs on bidding on the property so they don't potentially lose their business location?
So they may be a lessee, you're saying?
They may, yes. That would
Okay.
be, that would be, and we haven't decided for sure which direction, but we wanted to include.
I kind of like that idea.
We kind of did too, but we want to make sure that we take a good look at, state code, tax commission rules and all the rest to make sure that we have a full scope of it all, but also include, commissioners in the discussion to see what direction the county wants to go. So really what we're doing is, as Cortland recommended, getting at least one commissioner on board with us, opening that up and doing some digging, come back with a proposal.
Well, I like that. So we've got 3 definitions here that we don't have a definition. We got 3 words we don't have definitions on.
Right, and that was one of the things. we
That sounds
wanted
like
to
a
address.
lawsuit waiting to happen, Mr. Council. Okay, I like it. So you're just asking, so you want permission to go ahead and start working on these terms?
Yes,
They're looking for permission to get on these terms.
Wow, that's wonderful.
You don't even have to support it, Jim, because I
Yeah.
will.
Yeah,
Thanks. You wouldn't be opposed if it were unanimous with you.
super short version, county code for tax sale, we want to clean some things up and make things more clear.
Great.
I appreciate you looking at this. I
Thank you.
mean, this is
What's
stuff
your
we should be doing.
Oh,
Dakota.
so Dakota is
Dakota.
deputy clerk for the Board of Equalization.
Oh,
Yes, I don't know
thank
if
you.
we've met you, if we formally introduced, so formally
We haven't.
Glenna, and then April Hatfield, so he's handling
Okay.
our tax exempt organizations, tax sale and property valuation.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Dakota's been phenomenal.
I like where you're going with this. Commissioner Bowl,
Looks good.
Okay,
So-
we will,
this won't impact our May sale by any means.
no, we don't have any this year that would be impacted by that, so we're not in a rush. There were some on the tax sale this year that got us looking at it more closely. But none of them fall under this.
How many properties this year, looks like? Too early to tell.
We started with about 88. Right now we're down to 51. They're just trickling slowly out, so too early to tell, but probably not a substantial amount.
Yeah, we're on
Okay.
track. I would guess maybe 5 to 8.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, in May, we'll probably be down to that. 3 of them are like abutting parcels. They're just little, like a couple of them are in somebody's backyard with a shed on it.
Yeah. Okay,
So, yeah, it's,
We love
should
those.
be on par.
okay, so I'm assuming you get these, your suggestions for the definitions, you'll bring them back to us.
Yeah, we'll run all of those by,
Yeah.
probably individually, just so you can all get some feedback and maybe even do a work session with you to.
Yeah, I'd like to make sure we have another work session, or,
Mhm.
I would say first meet with us individually, get our individual, in case we have suggestions, then once you do that, bring it back to a work session.
Will do. And like I mentioned, we're not in a rush to get it done, so we
Yeah.
wanna make sure we do it right and cover all the bases.
Yeah, let's get it done right. I like that.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
Thank
We will
you.
proceed.
I like writing. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
Dakota, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Good
you.
luck. Thank you.
So, our 2 o'clock has been canceled.
Oh, the 2 has.
I thought the 1:30 was canceled.
It
Well-
was as well.
And it was, and while you were taking your short sauntering break, we do got canceled.
Well, it's better to bear the shame than it is the pain.
No shame from this side. All right. So with that, since we don't have anybody,
Motion to saunter till 2:30 then.
all right, we got a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sauntering. Yes, sir.
Motion to cease to saunter.
Got a motion to cease dishonor.
Who doesn't have
In
one?
a second, all those in favor?
Oh, you.
Aye. Now, back into session.
I go.
No, yeah.
Not to say we won't do that.
No.
Okay, we're back in our work session. Looks like we've got Chief Reese with us. We're now here for our 2:30 discussion regarding sheriff office update and jail bond update. From what I understand from our sheriff, we're gonna start with the sheriff office updates. And
Please.
transcend into the jail bond. Hey,
Okay,
Sheriff, you're up.
thank you. There was a movie clip that,
Mhm.
I'll say it anyway. There's a video that's been bouncing around, and I can't remember what movie it was. But it had to do with dinosaurs, and there's this big mound of dinosaur dung. And this guy comes walking in, he goes, that is one big pile of, and the title was, this is what happened when I came to work today. So that's been Thursday and Friday and the weekend, with Upper Valley.
Good to hear.
Complaints and,
Yeah.
you know, one thing.
basin and.
Snow basin, and I just, first of all, let me tell you, I appreciate everyone in this room's support. This is something none of us can handle alone. And I know, with us, the way we are, we all have friends, right? And friends have a direct connection to the commissioners and the treasurer, and they like to use that. And that can be challenging, but
Yeah.
thank you all for the support. We will get through this. It's gonna be fine. It's just, there's just a lot of, a heap of stuff that we just gotta get our plows. In fact, Mark Horton came to me today and said that the front end loader for the roads department can't use it up on the divide because the scoop and how high the piles are too high. So they need our snow cat with the blade to start pushing stuff. So we gotta send one of our snow cats up there that we use for search and rescue.
For North Arden Divide.
Yeah, that's
Well, we don't have to worry about it yet because it's closed for a week.
right. I mean, we don't have to worry about traffic, but we still need to get our equipment up there. So we're helping the roads out with snow removal. They can't use the big,
Can't we use the blower?
no, because the rocks that might be under the snow.
Okay,
So that's just,
so what happened at the basin? I didn't hear. Thankfully I was gone this weekend.
yeah, it's, so my understanding, talking with, Davey
Ratchford.
Ratchford. He didn't know what I knew, and I didn't know what he knew, but apparently, one of my lieutenants got in a argument with somebody up there about sharing information. But what happened is we found out there was a lady who works for the company, was calling from Colorado,
Works for
Snow Basin, or that company, and called us and said, hey, there's problems up here. Can you post something to help with the traffic and the issues? And so we got dispatch involved. They gave us all the information that we needed. It looked true and accurate. We posted, and then someone else called and said, what the heck are you doing? You know, but they're not communicating. We're trying to serve and help. It was just dumb.
Yeah.
It could have been avoided, not a big deal. And then I get a call from Commissioner Harvey, which most of the time I look forward
I
to.
hope he wasn't too bad to you.
No, he was solving the problem.
Yeah,
Yes,
problem
so it was very nice.
Okay, solved the problem.
Solved the problem.
Well, that's a problem up there every weekend. We've had some discussions going on with UDOT. That thing fails. I mean, when you have traffic backed up 6 miles that impacts a freeway
Oh, yeah,
and off of 89, that's a problem.
yes.
So anyway,
So that's it. Sorry, I mean,
that's not our
it's
problem.
not venting. I just let you know, it's been great. I just want to express appreciation for support.
Good.
And then, one more item, I think, before, Chief Reese comes on, is, I got an email, the contracts are up for the schools, for our school, resource officers,
At Weaver County.
Weaver County, and they have this formula. And when I came on about 5 years ago, I was asked to sign these contracts. And I signed them, under good faith of this is the way, you know, Thompson says it's the right thing to do, and I'm not making any complaints. But the formula in the email is consistent with years past. So this year they're estimating, this is an analogy, so follow me real quick or along with me. They're estimating, as an analogy, that each officer or deputy is $170,000 a year.
How much?
70, including benefits, pay,
70?
170. It's
Okay.
about right.
Is that-
Probably within 10 or
The
20,000.
vehicle.
Everything.
Okay, that includes
Yeah,
both.
fuel,
Is that right?
training.
That's not that far off.
No, it's not far off.
Okay.
So the current formula says that the school divides, multiplies it by 0.7, so 70%, which is 119,000. And then they take that number and divide it in half. So by their figure, that is $59,000. So I don't understand this formula, so I asked for clarification, and this is their response. We then take the amount and divide it in half, which is that, it's actually 35%. The concept being about half of the time an SRO is handling crime matters / law enforcement related duties. And the other half of the time, they are involved in school-related functions and activities. So what does that mean? So they're saying in their speak that if we didn't have school resource officers, then we'd be out there on an average of 4 hours a school day handling crime complaints. And it just doesn't make, but when we're out there, they want to pay half because they think that the crime related stuff is we'd be doing that anyway. And I just disagree. So we have Matt Jensen who's doing an audit for us. And we're out at the school on average 99.8% of the time.
Well, they have to be there under state law, don't they?
Well, yes, well, this new House Bill 61 is changing a lot. But they're
Yeah.
saying that the work that's generated there on the crime level would be doing that anyway. So that's why they only have to pay half, which we say we don't disagree with. I mean, excuse me, we strongly disagree with that.
Sheriff, are they saying that half is taking place inside the school, but they would be there anyway if they weren't stationed there?
Yes, which we,
So is there that much crime going on in the school?
That's what Matt Jensen's finding out,
Yeah,
right?
we say no.
yeah, I would.
So
I
we,
would- I
Do you
like-
know a battle before
I,
your time? You
yeah.
were battling that as mayors who pay into your contract.
so it's the way I
Oh,
see
okay.
it. So as you guys know, we do contracts, with the cities. And they're, if I read this right, they're saying that if we go out in their city and we make an arrest, we would be making that arrest anyway if we were out there, if we weren't out in their city. And so that's the time subtracted from the contract. But our arrests include paperwork, going to the jail and all kinds of stuff. So I've talked to most of all the chiefs that are in the Weber County School District. They are really upset about this. They believe that the school should pay full freight for our officers. And that we are there because we also act most of the time as basically an administrative assistant to the schools, whatever they want.
Yeah,
So,
well, that resource officer is almost there at the really direction of the administration.
yes, we are there a lot.
They're not gonna leave the school and go on a traffic stop, for example, are they?
No,
So,
the only time they would be called out, Commissioner, is if it was a priority one or party two, which is an active shooter or something.
Yeah.
They never leave. And so if they're there and they're spending the whole time, if there's a crime there, that's what they're paying for and they're gonna get it. But if they're actually, in my estimate, we're losing somewhere around $300,000 to $500,000. They think they should be paying us for our deputies.
I don't
So we got
disagree.
7 of them.
Yeah. No, I don't agree with their math, let me put it that way.
Yeah, well, even their scenario, they're saying that because if there was no SROs, we'd go out there and handle this much crime, but we just don't go out there.
No.
But what was the bill that you were probably there, 239 or something,
Real
where,
taxes?
a few years ago where they took the juvenile, like the status offenses and the
misdemeanor Cs and infractions, and they were to be handled by the schools.
Oh, yeah.
Juvenile JRI or-
JJRI or
That was
something,
Hutchins bill, yeah.
right? And so that shifted a lot into the
Yeah.
schools anyway.
It did, that they're required to handle.
Yeah. So
Well, I'd like to know what code requires us, or is it a maybe you know, is it a negotiated contract?
It sounds like it's a negotiated
is.
contract, but we're happy to look into the code and we're happy to help with any negotiations.
we will be
to coming
using
up with
this.
A rate. And are the contracts expired already or were they just
Expiring
giving?
this July.
This
So where they already sent out stuff that we're getting ready to go through our
Yeah,
How
talks,
long is the contract?
5 years.
Mm.
But the other thing too is when they did they estimated the cost increase, but with the wage wars, we're so far beyond that. The contracts are gonna be done different. I'm tired of the sheriff's office and the county giving stuff away for free.
Yeah. I don't
Enough's
disagree.
enough.
No, I support you 100% on
We
that.
support schools, we support the kids, they come first. But I just don't think we should be paying all this money, take out of our own bank, if you will, to pay for it.
No, and the Weber County School District receives money from the taxpayers that should cover that.
Yes, it should. So if you get some resistance or some calls,
Okay.
that's probably what it's gonna be
Good to
about the
know.
next couple of months.
I'd say we have Liam Keo.
Start looking at it,
He's
okay.
quite, he's nice, but he's a bulldog.
So you just need, yeah, I would say you need to negotiate that contract.
Yes, we'll make sure everyone's involved. We're not gonna just do this on our set
Yeah, get the data
alone.
in.
Yeah,
Sheriff is, Matt Jensen, is he actually pulling stats from the schools as far as incidents and things like that?
I don't-
What kind of research is
we have no idea what he's doing.
That'd be probably really beneficial in negotiation.
I was thinking that too.
You know, to be able to say,
Yeah,
this is
here's-
where we're really spending our time and.
Yeah, helps to have that information.
And the other thing is if there is a large incident at the school, like a crime that needs to be investigated, if the officer can do it from the school, he'll do it. If not, it goes to the detectives. So they're again, right?
It's a different group.
It's a different group.
Yeah.
So,
They just need to be educated. on
Yeah,
how our
that's all.
process works.
Yeah.
yeah, but I just don't understand how this formula, you know how this formula started? I can't.
So a long time ago, we negotiated things because we weren't basing it on actual costs. We're negotiating it based off of a negotiation. This to me sounds
Is it
like,
like the share
Well,
contract?
but we pushed- but I mean, you were on the city side of that, so you
I
remember
know.
the battle back and
I
forth.
know.
And so I think this is a great time to look at those contracts. Again, I do think that the 70% factor off the top, because we do use them for Pineview during the summer months, right? They're
But
not
that, we agree with that.
Yeah, but I
It's-
don't
Then
think
it
that-
can't happen again.
70% is probably a fair split.
But I would almost leave it
But after-
there and say, okay, maybe
Yeah.
it's 90% or something like that goes towards the schools and maybe only 10%, if we can even justify that based
Well-
on the numbers.
Chief Park at South Ogden thinks it should be 90% and they should pay full 90%
Of the 170.
of the $170,000. He's not happy with this.
I got a question.
Okay.
Do they pay teachers? With all due respect, and I love teachers. But are the resource officers there as much as the teachers are there?
They're there, ours are there between 15 and 30 minutes before school starts and the same after,
So I don't know if they stay later.
about the same.
I'm just saying,
It's
the
close to
same
the same.
rationale, and they give the summer off, they pay full-time for teachers.
Mhm.
right? I think you've got it, I'm anxious to see the audit that Matt Jensen has. I hope that it has more numbers in it.
Yeah, get the information, get the numbers.
We'll get it for
How
you.
many, you have 7 schools?
Mhm.
So you said something about South Ogden's chief. If they have their own PD, do they?
They do contracts as
they
well.
contracts?
So does North Ogden, Pleasant
Okay.
View and Harrisville,
Harrisville does as well.
Okay,
and Roy has
with the same
3.
formula.
Yes.
Mm.
I'm say yes because they have all said it's a similar formula. Exact
Yeah.
number, I don't know.
So you've been talking to them.
Oh, we've been talking.
Are their contracts up at the same time?
They all are,
Remember
That might be good to get them involved with that discussion too.
yes.
Because if we can get everybody on board and essentially
Mhm.
use that same formula for everybody.
There-
Yeah, it should be, in my opinion, it should be consistent,
that. Mhm.
whether it's Harrisville or whether it's South Ogden. Should be. consistent.
I haven't talked to Harrisville's chief, but they indicate, another chief said that Harrisville is so understaffed that they're their SRO is in the school when there's no calls, but when there's a call, they have to go because they only have one person on. So that may be a different contract.
Could be
for them.
different, yeah.
Hmm.
This may be a different service than what you.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Interesting.
but Matt Gwynn is also not thrilled with this formula. So,
Good to know.
Fascinating.
all right.
Good. Where we at?
Okay, let's
Jump
go
on.
to this jumbo piece of paper out
Which
of
one we looking at? The blue?
top page, out of encouragement from John Bond. He said this is kind of the stuff he wants, so to formulate it to the way,
He's a numbers guy. I mean, give him a break. Okay.
you know, we got what we got.
Yeah.
So anyway, it sounds like Chief Reese or somebody's getting on, but let me just let you know, this is a draft. One of the challenges that we are running into is when we take FBI versus the sheriff's office versus other, a lot of the data is similar, but it's not, doesn't line up exactly. You also point out to you during this, there's some notes in here. There were several years that Ogden City never reported crime, and in Harrisville and some in North Ogden or partial info. But this is the best data we have right now, and it continues to change just a little bit. But I'll just start off with the top one. So this is a county population that I asked. Nina Thornley is one of our staff. She's got a master's degree. She's one of our bright individuals at the sheriff's office. She compiled all this for us. So I asked her to do this. Let me walk you through so you can see what we're talking about. We got the top graph. It's a county population. And we wanted to do it from 1950 and projected to 2050. And so you can see the municipal building in downtown Ogden. You see the little golden arrow. At that time, we had 92 beds at the top of that facility. And then as you go over to, you start seeing timelines when Kiesel was built, the linear section. There was 174 beds, and when that 174 beds came online, the municipal building was not being used anymore. It wasn't like what we have now where we got Kiesel and 12th Street.
Correct.
And then following 10 years later, there was the add-on pods to Kiesel, which you combine the 274 and the 124, you get almost 300 beds. And then shortly after that, you guys remember the consent or the decree? No, this is not in here, but there was issues where the feds came in and said your facility's too small, you have to build a new one, and that's when 12th Street came on. So then 12th Street came on 2000. And then you'll see, the other thing too is we tried to line up the timelines with all the other graphs. They're not exact, but at least gives you vision. So some data starts in 2017. Some we were able to go way back. So that gives you a perspective. Then you can see the gang injunction in 2008 or 9 was implemented. And then I did bring my glasses. And they are not just for looks, because they didn't help. Then you can see COVID was there, and then also pretrial services started. And you guys, I assume you're familiar with what pretrial services are. So anyway, there's kind of a time frame. Nina estimated the population based on the history, projected it by 2050 to be about 100,000 more than we are today.
366.
Yes. Okay, the next chart below, these are total booking numbers. And one of the good things is this sounds a little self-serving, but when we came in, we saw some shifts in technology programs, and I asked everyone to save the data from what we got now. So you'll see some of these graphs starting in 2017. We've reached out to the state, other entities. We're not finding any of the booking numbers. We're still looking, but that's why you have it starting in 2017 with this data. So you look at the blue linear, that is total booking numbers, and you see the dip. We attribute that to COVID, directly COVID. That's, remember the time that we asked all the agencies that had non-violent offenses to please cite and release. And now this year, we're starting to see a pretty strong rebound, and that's the trajectory. Now that you see the lines, you see new arrest, you see probation and parole in there. Other jurisdictions like highway patrol and so forth. Book and release is in there, marshal's service is in there, or marshal's office rather, commitments and warrants. The other thing that we see too is if you go and there see the wording under the second graph says total booking type numbers are estimated numbers based on historical average breakdown of charges. This is not all inclusive and will vary as there are multiple other types of bookings that are used as needed. All right, the next chart is the average inmate population. When I came on board and just before that, we were full capacity, and we also had marshal and state inmates. And it was right after I came in, we cut the state inmates because they were paying $54 per bed at a time. And then you can see there's a correlation with COVID on there. Even before JRI, we were full capacity. And now one thing I do want to point out, and I hope, Reese, I hope you're on. If I need some correcting, please chime in. But the thousand inmates that you see in 17, 18, and 19, this is when we were using Kiesel as well. Because at the 12th Street facility, we do have 888 beds, as you guys remember, as we explained in the past. We can't use every single bed because some inmates can't be where there's two. You can't put two in there because they're so violent. So there's a lot of that. So it's really around the 750 average. And at the time we were at Kiesel, using that to almost its capacity. And then COVID hit on the inmate population. And that's when I was telling you that we asked the agencies with nonviolence to try and just cite and release. Staffing became an issue. If you remember, that was the same time that we did the buyout, which at the time was the right decision to make, but we did not know that COVID was coming. There's nobody's fault in that. I mean, maybe Scott Parks, but nobody else's fault. I saw Scott shaking his head, so I see we all know. But anyway, staffing issues, as you recall, required us to do soft close at Kiesel and move a lot of those staff over to 12th Street to compensate for that. So there, as we go out through this, you got to remember Kiesel's involvement before, and then also over the years, we've also reduced the amount of upgrades and money to keep Kiesel running properly. We've cut way back with the anticipation that we'll maybe build a new Kiesel facility. And again, this is a projected from Nina, what she estimated that the population will grow to if we stay this current path. The next chart.
Sheriff.
Yeah, go ahead, Chief.
So Scott Park reached out early last week and asked about what our capacity was back in 2017 or to about 2019 as far as percentage of capacity, which was a very appreciated, thought-provoking question. 2017, 2019, we were running at 90% capacity. You already spoke to it, but I think it gives a good percentage to look at. I haven't quite nailed the number down as tightly as I would like it to be, but we're running at, in 2023, we're running at 75 to 80% capacity, meaning we're not able to fill every single bed as we were pre-COVID. So that goes in line with what you're talking about with the Kiesel facility being closed down and also simply not having as much available bed space as we did previously.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Scott.
I'm just looking at this. I'm trying to make sure I understand. So we're saying if we were to follow these projections, and let's just say we built a brand new Kiesel facility and it had the exact same capacity as the old Kiesel facility.
Our new Kiesel facility would be 100 less.
Okay, 100 less beds.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just looking at this and saying, okay, in 2019, we had with Kiesel about 1,000, and we're not projecting to get that again until 2040. Is that what this is saying here on the population, the average inmate population? I guess what I'm trying to do is make sure that I understand the sizing of the, is it one pot, is it two pots?
So here this is part of the struggle that we're talking about on putting this information together. we had about, Chief, didn't we have about 250 to 300 state and marshal inmates at that time?
300, yeah.
300. So we're down to, we got rid of the state, now we're down to 100 marshals right now, which we're filling up with our locals.
Okay.
Right?
Correct.
Thank you.
And so you've got approximately 100 plus or minus now.
Yeah, we've trimmed it down from a couple of years ago to 300. Now we're down to 100. It's just marshals.
Okay, got it.
But I guess my question is, so in 2040, are we projecting, assuming we don't have any marshals, we're saying the county's need for a prison would be in 2040 around 1,000 inmates a day if we were to use, or 1,000 inmates if we were to use this same data. I'm just trying, is that, I mean, that's kind of what it's telling us here, right?
Based on the population increase for the county.
Yeah, so
How was that calculated?
Go ahead, Chief.
I don't know. That's one of the conversations I need to have with Miss Thornley tomorrow when I get back. I'm not sure how she calculated the average inmate population as far as into the future. So I will get you a better answer, Mr. Park. I'm sorry I don't have it right now.
I asked Nina to take what our current path would look like if it was, but that factor is based on just what's happened in the last 2 years. So it's not a correct projection.
I just wanted to make sure that our projection, because as I look at this and I realize this is super simple. So I'm just looking at this, I'd say, well, if we had one pod, would that be sufficient? Or if we had a Kiesel facility, would that be sufficient? Or you do this, I'm trying to see if, why do we justify the 2 pods? That's why I was just trying to ask that question.
And you're looking at it from a timeline perspective.
Yeah, because if
20
we don't
years, 30
need,
years, 40 years.
yeah, if it's 25 years before we need another pod, it doesn't make any sense to build it today. I get that construction costs will always be higher in the future, but if we don't need it for 25 years, it doesn't make sense to build it today.
Right.
If we need it in 5 years, if we need it in 10 years, maybe it does make sense to build it today, but if it's 25 years, it doesn't.
So Chief Reese, I think what he's saying, the same question I had. I'd like to know where that average inmate population number, if that came just extrapolated from county population, if it came from booking numbers, exactly how did we arrive at that so that we can determine in 2040 or 2050 that we've got a confidence level that that's gonna be a good number to go with. Because I think that's what, when we look at this and the conversations I've had, is we really need to determine the need.
Right.
Versus what we think it may be. What, we have to have good, and the public will want to know
So, right.
the
So this,
numbers. How can we justify certain numbers and how did we justify them?
right. So as you guys recall in my opening statements about this, the problem that we have is that we could, if we didn't have COVID has just changed everything. What we don't have in here is the court number or information about how many backed up or not going to trial, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know who's being sentenced. So I told Nina, just take what we have and project it. This is why this is a rough draft and we are not able to pinpoint those numbers. But we do have other data in here that will help explain more.
Okay.
Okay, so if you skip down to the next one, average days served by crime. So one thing that's consistent here is that we always get out, what is the average time someone is staying in the jail? So if you look at this chart, you could see that for a felony 1, the average days in our facility is right about, looks like 55 days. So in 2020, it went up to 75. And then between 2020 and now, we're somewhere about, let's see, what about 20 to 25 days longer. So the question is can we rotate people in and out? Well, we used to rotate them more, but the inmates are staying in there longer, which is not allowing us to have those beds. So you look at booking rates and you look at population, what does that mean? Well, that means that's what it is. But when you look at the long term, people are staying in our facility a lot longer.
That all looks like every class.
Every class is, yes.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is suicide watches. This is the data that we were able to gain only until 2017. And you can see about an 8% increase of, 8% of all bookings have to go on suicide watch now.
Okay.
So this really leads into the need for a mental health facility. Okay, next page, okay? Or turn the
And you
page.
can verify that by.
Yes, we have that data
You
ourselves.
got that?
Yep.
Okay. Got it, okay?
Now, the other thing that, as you guys recall, it's worth repeating is that, COVID did teach us the courts and the way that we all do business a whole lot differently. So the question we always get is crime going up. So by numbers, it's going up because our population is going up. There's a direct correlation.
Okay.
And here you can see, reported crimes versus cleared crimes. So the reported crimes on violent crimes are going up and so is the cleared ones. And this is a trend that's going up. So at one point during COVID, Chief Reese has actually been very instrumental to work to now we are a no refusal facility. We opened it up. We haven't put it out there because like the snowstorms we're getting, it was just 8 weeks ago, APP said, if we knew your doors were completely open and you had the bed space, we'd bring in 200. That's how many violations of probation are
From-
sitting
from
out there right now,
APP?
just AP&P.
Hmm.
Right? And a lot of
That's
the,
a big number.
and so you also got the courts that are backed up because they're not being adjudicated. Who knows what their sentence will be, right? It's a long time. So we're in this influx or this wave of really uncertainty, but we do know that the trends are moving up.
I think there's data too from the courts, which Brandon Miles has a lot of it. That the rate of violent crimes are going up.
Yes.
And in comparison to other counties like Davis, and we have more violent felons here.
We do. I got some, yeah, no, okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, and again, this is draft. This is really good stuff of what we have right now. We're still planning on getting more data that supports the need of the county, but this earlier I was talking about, so crime rate per 1,000 people. So you look at the year 2000, right? So there's the crime rate per 1,000, but the population today compared to 2000 is a lot more, right? In 2000, I think we were closer to 200,000 residents. Now we're approaching 270. So if the crime rate does not change, crime is still going up, right? Because we got more population. So in this graph, if you notice some of the inconsistency, this is the challenge we have. I'll just read this verbatim. The graph includes multiple years of incomplete data. OPD did not report numbers in 2000, 2001, and partial data in 02 to 05. Harrisville had partial from 01 to 03 and none from 04 to 14. Pleasant View did not report data for 15 years. Weber State PD did not report from 2000, 2003, then 07 to 19. And then it just goes on to North Ogden. So some of the cities are just not doing what they're supposed to give us the accurate data.
Yeah.
I
Wait,
do,
can I ask a question?
yes,
If they didn't report it, does that mean it's there and they could find that?
it should be there. I mean, they make arrests, they should be documented, it should be
think so.
recording.
Or is that just?
So,
too much
yeah,
homework?
yeah, the other challenges that you have in law enforcement, since I've been in law enforcement, we've gone to, maybe this is where Chris can help me, but we're in Spillman right now, but before that, it was Versadex, and before that, it was Spillman. And a lot of agencies will not pay the $50,000 to $200,000 to take that data to
Right.
roll it in. So when we go to generate reports, it's not there.
I would say, I don't know the answer to the Spillman question, but I would say asking the courts to show us the number
Right.
of cases that have been filed, number of charges have been filed will help us hone in on that.
Yes, and we're still working on that.
Can we get that information?
Oh, we'd be happy to help. We've got some of it and we'd be
Yeah.
happy to provide it to you, but we'll probably need to reach out for more years.
It's really hard to have faith in this chart when you know so much is missing.
It is.
Like that's-
there's a lot-
that
it
a
is.
lot of missing information.
It
Especially with
is.
this much money.
Well, we could standardize, Sheriff, if you want, we could help standardize the data, so we could basically use some percentages and kind of give you at least a more smooth rate per
Right,
1,000.
and that's what we,
to-
yes.
To account for that missing data. I think that would give us a better picture, because when I look at this, I'd say, wow, what happened in 2010? We
Right.
were worse in 2010 than we were
Right.
gonna be in 2050. You know, so I think if whoever's working on this data, if they want to send it, I'm happy to work with them. We could at least standardize this. If we can't get any more data, if we get more data, that's
And
better.
put a little bit of analysis into it also.
Right.
Yeah.
So that you've got some analysis blurbs so that
Yeah.
it's easy to comprehend. Because if you just look at this and without the explanation, it
Sure.
just doesn't make any sense.
I think it's very helpful though, and it's a very good start.
Yeah.
And that we know that the slope is going up.
Yeah.
It's just a wet angle.
So this part's anecdotal, and it's worth discussing, or just sharing. So this is according to the state of Utah in 2021 crime rate. So keep in mind, Davis County has 775 total beds. Weaver County, they're also 100,000 more in population than we are. If we were to utilize every single bed, even Kiesel, we're around 1150-ish beds. The crime rate in Davis County per 1,000 is 38. Weaver County is 66 per 1,000 people, right? Salt Lake County is 79 per 1,000 people. Utah County is 700,000 residents. We're again 260, 270. Their rate per 1,000 is 33. Ours is 66. It's double.
You know, it's interesting that.
So why are we like we are, right? So you look just at crime rate.
There's no homeless shelters in Utah or Davis County.
Right. So we bear a lot of the
Tells you
burden.
right that.
Mhm.
And those people, if they do get out, bless their hearts, but a lot of them reoffend. Those are just the numbers.
Well, these
And so
halfway
those-
houses, they get jobs here. So when
Yeah.
they get released, they stay here.
So that's my belief. Not that they're good or bad people, but I just think that's why Davis and Utah counties, they should have those places. Washington County's got one. They're only, the other class 2 counties in the state need to have those. I don't want their payment anymore. I don't want Davis County's payment, take care of ours anymore. They can keep it. They need to build their own facility and house their own, take care of their own population, people. Cause what it does is then they end up staying here and reoffending, and it'll take decades to balance back and correct, but that's the one thing we can do is just cut the gate at the border.
Again, yeah, thank you. Just to put things under this large umbrella that we're talking about is Chris Allred just got an email from a federal attorney and a state attorney that they're gonna sue us because we're not providing visit time with these attorneys. And, we don't have the bandwidth to handle the court that we'd like, the video court that we'd like to do. So in our proposal, we asked for $2 million for renovation of the jail so we can open up those facilities, make, you guys should call them mini courtrooms or audio rooms. So we can have what we have now, inmates to have access to the attorneys, to the courts. And this is ongoing, this type of threat. We had a threat from Davis County, a criminal attorney about a year ago about not providing. The difference between us and Davis County is their court is right next to their jail, so they can walk their inmates. We don't. So that's a big game changer for us. The other thing that if you want to put a perspective to ask to answer Scott Park's question of do we need another pod or not? So one question's always remained, do we keep Kiesel or do we not? Because if we're just trading this for that, we either need to spend the money, get a new Kiesel facility, or we got to go back and just start putting money back into it and use it, because that's where a lot of our balance was. Right. And then the other thing is the medical mental health wing, right? If that's something we need to know, so we need to have. So that's almost a for sure, right? Based on our needs, what we're experiencing now. And then what do we do with Kiesel? Either we replace it or we keep it going and put a lot of money into it. And then we can answer the pod question more definitively as we get more data from Chris, or not Chris, but the courts, and we can define that better. And then the other question, the last one, is do we keep Marshall inmates? Because if we remove all them, technically there's 100 beds, right? If we had them before, we had up to 200 to 300, which was somewhere between 5 and 7 million that we were bringing in. To Scott,
for 100 or 200?
for 200. And to Scott's point, is it cheaper to not carry the Marshall inmates and not build a pod, right? But what do we need from that? We have a great relation. Chris Allred's office, a lot of attorneys are cross-deputized and for the marshals, and there's a great benefit there. So those are the questions in my mind is what we really need to answer. Do we need another pod or 2 pods? We believe that we know we need the medical now for sure, and we need to decide on Kiesel.
Okay, so let's go to the scenarios here as pointed out by our famous John Bond.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
When you say replace piece, are we talking about moving it to the 12th Street? Is that what
Building a new
replace
one.
means?
Yes.
Move the site.
Move it. So there is some advantages to moving it. Is we could see a direct cost savings and benefit to the community as a whole. If we do the access center that's moved out on 12th Street and those resources, we could see benefits. The director of Weaver Human Services, Kevin Eastman, would like to see that where we move away, because we already got that ongoing money from Representative Gwynn from the Access Center in McKay. But if we had that out there attached to or next to the Kiesel facility, we could see a lot of resources very much improved. And it goes hand in hand. Plus it pulls a lot of that work, if you will, or resources out of Ogden and puts it into what we've dubbed pretty much the corrections corridor.
Yeah,
Right there at
how
12.
much, there's only like 300,000 to 400,000 a year coming to the access, isn't there?
No, it's $1 million something.
Is
I
it?
believe. Maybe it's 600,000 or 800,000. And then you have the opioid money too, that could be used, as we described in previous conversations. That could be a really nice, robust facility to help with
Okay,
homelessness and all that other.
all right, let's go back to scenario 1. You've been through this, I'm assuming.
I have seen it. And to be transparent, I don't know where, John Bond told me about it. There was a 40% figure. I don't know where that come from. How we calculated that the costs are 40% more than they were last year or two, but I'm sure that can be answered.
That's a flat, we call.
It's 30%, right? 30%, I think. is
One
what
I
it is.
saw had 40%.
We've
Changed it.
changed.
Okay,
30%.
right.
That's just,
That
that's just,
seems a little better.
well, that's just estimated.
Right.
With construction cost, which if we look at what construction costs have done over the last 2
Yes.
years, it'd
Yes.
probably be above 30%,
Right,
or very close to it, depending on,
sure.
Over time, do we need cleaner and cleaner data? Yeah.
yeah,
Do we have at least ballpark?
Yeah.
so we can
Yes.
have somewhat of a discussion?
yeah,
Yes.
these aren't construction bids. all
Right, I understand that.
This is a basically best guess scenario based upon what we know now, but we've got to start somewhere. So this is an effort to get us to a decision point that I'd like to get us ASAP. And what I hear, and again, can these numbers be adjusted just like your numbers can be adjusted?
Sure.
Absolutely so. But I want to get a direction. I want to narrow this down so that if we continue down this path of all 4 scenarios being on the board, we'll be sitting here in August talking about this and it'll be too late.
Too late.
What I'm trying to do is get us to the point where you can move ahead with a game plan so that everybody in this room and Chief Reese and everybody else agrees that this is the plan forward to try to sell to the public. Okay? Does that make sense?
Are you saying we're all gonna be singing out of the same handbook?
I am, exactly.
You did learn something over there.
I did, and you're gonna be singing tenor.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so let me back up then. So what I hear you saying is that from your analysis, from what you see, the medical wing would be your number one. If we took just one section of this, and I'm not saying we will, but if we were to narrow it down to one section, it would be the medical wing,
I believe so.
okay? All right, so let's go on
I'm
to,
answering like I'm on the stand,
Yeah.
just so you know.
okay, well, I come from I chair legislative committee and you're getting it easy. All right?
Oh my
You're
gosh.
You're getting it real easy. All right, so let's go to scenario 2.
So just to clarify, scenario 1 includes the medical unit and the remodel.
Yeah, and the remodel. Okay, so that's
Yes.
why, and the remodel for Kiesel.
No, the remodel for the internal.
Internal, that was talking about the video court and some other.
Okay,
It's tied
Yes.
together with the medical week.
yes, okay, so let's
Those
go
need
to,
to go hand in hand.
let's go to the Kiesel versus the new pod.
Right,
Have we got,
Scenario 2.
that would be scenario 2.
Yeah.
That would be to
We call it work release.
move get rid of Kiesel,
Shut it down,
move
make
to
Ogden
12,
City happy,
okay?
go to 12.
Yes.
So with one pod,
Nope,
No, that's not a pod.
not even,
Okay.
we're not there yet.
We're not the pod yet. That's just replacing Kiesel, old Kiesel, new Kiesel, same operation,
Okay.
same function,
so work
same
related.
everything,
Building-
work
you're
release,
building
a
something.
new building.
That would be what we call a soft structure rather than a pod.
Yes,
Work rela- yeah. work
Yes.
release.
Would that be correct?
It wouldn't be
Yes.
intensified structure wise, because you got people coming in and out all day.
but,
and you
Yeah.
don't-
but let's be clear, it would not be as hard as a pod, but it's not gonna be soft like our homes we live in.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
understand that. I'm just comparing it
Okay,
to
yes,
hard security.
right.
Okay, so that would be scenario 2.
Option two. Yep.
Okay,
So that adds 20 or 19 million to the 26 million that was already there.
so we started off with 26.
Yep.
With that, we're at 45.
No, hold on, sorry, but keep in mind, the plans for the new Kiesel, if I remember correctly, is 194 beds. Where Kiesel right now, if we fully utilize it, is 290 beds. So we're
Okay.
losing 100 beds.
Right, so it's not a full
But you don't fully use it.
No, we don't, primarily because of staffing.
Okay.
We are down 43 deputies in corrections right now.
So then the question is what do we do with Kiesel? If we do,
We vacate
if we take option 2, what do we do with Kiesel?
Well, there's a potential, and it's a very small chance, but the marshals have considered maybe looking into as a purchase. I don't know what but that's a
It's not even
stretch.
Functional.
Well, with the right amount of upgrades, I think our group came in and estimated 10 to 15 million dollars,
That's what I remember.
but it would be better to build a new facility. But if they want a facility, yeah, but I do not think that'll happen.
Is
Yes,
that the only option for the building?
well,
Ogden write us a check.
Ogden wants us to tear it out and donate it to dirt. Yeah.
They definitely want it.
And
No.
donate, did you say?
No, oh, yeah.
They want to tear it down and then give it to them.
Yeah,
We should give him the building.
Yeah.
We should give him the dirt, not the building. He wants us to pay the cost to tear it down.
and then pay the cost to tear it
Yeah,
down.
that's your friend more. He loves you.
If wishes were fishes.
Yeah. All right, so
does that even mean?
scenario.
Hang on a second.
We all have this one.
So if we're in scenario 2, we can assume we're not gonna get anything for Kiesel. Is that right? Is that right?
If you're asked, if you're asking me based on what I've heard commissioners and other people talk, it sounds like we'll get almost nothing from anybody from it,
That's
right?
how I see it. Well,
Yes,
and economically, the only real user of that was Ogden City.
Mhm,
And the only way they use it is if the buildings are taken off.
mhm.
The land value is worth about what it's gonna probably cost. Now, again, this is speculation, but it's probably worth about the cost
Okay.
that we're gonna pay to tear it down to give them dirt.
That's
then
what
you
I'm
got
asking. We're not
asbestos
getting it.
issue.
I don't,
That's all I'm asking. We're not getting.
Yeah, I
anything
would
there.
say, I wouldn't factor anything
No,
into that.
I
I
would-
would say best case scenario, we walk away with that without having to spend any money.
I would say this, if
Okay.
we went to Ogden City and say, we'll give it to you, but you tear them down, that would be a better deal for the county.
Isn't there a
Now,
value in?
don't repeat
removing-
that. Oh, sorry, we're on video.
Isn't there a value in removing an incarceration facility from downtown Ogden, though? I mean, they want it out of there. I
They want
would
it gone.
think that there would be some kind of benefit.
Maybe.
There's an
we shouldn't
intangible
have-
benefit to Ogden City, but they're not gonna write us a check for
No.
that.
We negotiate
Problem-
that.
well,
with
The
other
problem
things.
is all the services are downtown.
Yeah.
All the people who need those services are right in that area within walking distance. It's, yeah, Ogden City doesn't like that, but
Well-
the fact is all these little nonprofits and stuff are within walking
Yep.
distance and they can all go right
the
to.
court, the jail, AP&P, they're all right there.
No, there's no disagreement there. The issue, would Ogden City pay us any money? And I would tell you, if you looked at their fancy drawings, that's not what they have anticipated.
No,
for
they
their-
want an expanded amphitheater.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that answers my.
Okay, so let's assume
Zero,
that's a break even.
assume.
Best case.
Best.
Best case, we just don't have to pay anything
Oh,
without.
You're not going into the whole.
Uh, Okay,
Bulldozer.
so we go from medical wing to transferring Kiesel over with 190 beds. Correct.
Yes,
The next scenario would be one pod, the way I understand this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So we go then from 45 up to almost 70 million.
That is correct.
And that's using our 30% inflation factor.
That's using inflation. Plus, we've now introduced operation and maintenance.
And then we've got O and M for,
So can I pause you there,
So
John?
option 3 is what, that pod?
So
one pot.
So talking with the feasibility study group, Chief Reese and our medical, as you guys recall, we contract our medical. We believe that the staffing required inside the new medical mental health facility based on its size is gonna be very small.
We haven't added in this scenario any
Okay.
additional costs for that. So we basically
No.
said, if you add a new medical wing or a new medical wing and a new work release KISO, you're gonna be able to do it at your existing operating budget. You're not gonna need
okay.
any additional.
Yeah, the only additional will be the pod.
Yeah, and that's
If we
why,
go there.
if you look down here, the only time you
Yes.
get O and M added is when you actually add a new pod, because now
Yes,
your inmates are gonna need the same amount of food as everyone else. They're gonna be as sick as everyone else. They're gonna need
Yes.
staffing guards.
and there will be a slight reduction of staff overall in that scenario because less sergeants, less movement for food and laundry and all that kind of stuff. So we should see that in there.
Yeah, so that's saying that we're giving you credit for the people you have now for Kiesel and your medical wing, that you're not gonna have to go out and hire any new people.
No,
Okay, that's the way you understand it, Scott? For the medical wing and the
For the medical,
option 1, option 2.
option 1 and option 2, we did not build in any
Right.
additional costs for O and M.
okay, thank
Okay.
you.
It was there last Friday. We took it out over the weekend.
Yeah,
So you do listen to people.
Yes.
there you go. You don't know,
I was telling
you don't know how much power you have, Sheriff.
But how about numbers?
Okay,
Well-
then
I'm just messing.
then if you go out and buy the internet car, like some people we know, and go the full route, you're up to 93 million for 2 pods.
The internet car.
Yeah.
That's
it's
just,
expensive.
it's, he's just jamming
Yeah,
at
I'm
me.
just-
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like, that's not the drone van, is it? It's like, what?
Which is very cool.
He can't say to go out and buy the Mercedes.
No,
He
I can't say-
say that.
Gotcha, gotcha.
No, who'd wanna buy that? Anyway, so now you're up to 93 and, plus or minus. So roughly another what, 30 million? 20-some million for the additional pot.
If you look at the top here and it's also got the residence tax increase.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
without that O and M,
yeah,
you're at 18 to 31 bucks per household. But then once you add the operation and maintenance to the inflation, to the pricing that we've got so far, you'd be at 93, then 155. So those are the kind of the ranges that we're starting to see develop right now.
yeah.
13 bucks.
And I would say if any numbers on this chart are the most significant, it's right there.
Yeah.
Annual tax increase.
Oh, sure.
What the voters will make their decision on is they don't care about crime unless they've got a criminal in their family, then they might want a better bed, but most of them aren't gonna care. The voters aren't gonna care. They're gonna care about this.
How important is the sheriff, the marshal money to the county?
Well, so this, I think that's a great question. So it worries me a little bit if we talk about the marshals taking Kiesel,
That's.
because that then eliminates the possibility of marshals out there, if in fact it proved to be a money
When you
maker.
say marshals taking Kiesel.
Well, you just said the marshals
Purchasing it.
purchasing it,
I
yeah.
mean, they would be the owner, the operator and
Yeah.
all that.
But then we'd lose their income out here.
Yes.
So we lose a tenant, potential tenant, they're now an owner. of
But
what-
let's say Kiesel's not even a factor. Let's say
Okay.
Kiesel's getting leveled.
Okay,
Do we still want to keep marshals here on a I'm asking not law enforcement. I'm talking financial. How
so
important
that's
is
the
it to the
Scott Park,
county?
so
So
what do the marshals pay for?
the answer to that question is the marshals don't pay the full cost of an employee or a full cost of an inmate. So if you don't count the amount of money the taxpayers have to pay to actually build the building.
Yeah.
Then the marshals cover their variable costs. They cover the additional cost of their food and their medical care and their staffing. But if you have to dump in the full bond payment on that, so let me just give you an example. If we were to build a pod just for marshal inmates, you would have to get $14 million a year from that because you've got to pay the $5 million bond payment. And then you've got to pay the operating and maintenance costs. Because you mean, the one thing that you don't see in your budget, Sheriff, is the bond, the debt service payment. So,
You're right.
so take whatever you're paying now, add another $6 million charge to that, and then plus another $5 million for operations and maintenance, if we're just doing one pod. And then you've got to manage that out. You'd have to do $10 million more in your existing operating budget, and we only get on an 888 bed facility.
Right.
You know, $5 million at a good year, you wouldn't be able to make that up in the next. So what I'm saying is it doesn't make sense to build a brand new pod just to do marshal inmates. But if I need a brand new pod in 7 years, then it does make sense to build it now and lease it out for 7 years until we get to the point where we need it. So that's why I was asking the question back here at the beginning. If we don't need a second pod for 25 years, don't build it today. If we need a second pod in 7 years, then build it today.
And build it or lease it up.
Yeah, and lease it out until, and then each year instead, you know, we start with 500 contract inmates and the next year it's 450, then 400 and so on. We eat those up as our demand for county
Right.
inmates grows. That makes sense. But if it's something that we don't need for 20, 25 years, it doesn't make any sense to pay for it now.
No, that makes sense. I just, that's the discussion. I value Chris Allred, his team and, I don't know how valuable the marshals are to your office, right?
I know a lot of the inmates are Weber County residents, even though
Yeah.
they're being.
That's the other thing too.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead.
But help me walk through this, but if someone comes in, they're charged federally, that would be at a felony level, right? So they essentially be going to the prison anyway, right? But if we don't hold marshals and we don't go charging them through the marshals and holding them, they'd be going to the state anyway, right?
Yeah, and I'll have to get Allred and Miles involved in this, because there's gonna be the likelihood of them being released from federal prison gonna be very different than from state, and then you're gonna have to factor in recidivism. One of the questions I have though is how much per inmate per day is it, Scott?
Is it 85 or 90 right
We know
now,
what that is.
92?
So.
That's what they're paying, but our cost, depending on the capacity, because if you can only put in like 75% of the beds at any time or 80% of the beds,
Yeah.
that number factors into it, but you're about $135, $140 an inmate a day
In our costs.
to
Oh,
pay
what?
for the facility. Yeah, to build a jail, you would have to get 100, and that's like in today's dollars without any increase in staffing costs. So I'd say to be safe, you'd need $150 a day before it starts to make sense looking
New-
at building a facility for contracting.
Oh,
And I thought Chief Reese said we could get up closer to that number.
If
because
we-
Davis-
if we do the ICE,
That's if ICE
Oh.
comes in.
the ones that nobody wants.
Well, they
No,
have
we can
additional
do,
costs.
Sheriff, we can do US Marshals at 130. Davis gets 120 right now, and they
Oh.
don't transport. We've had good conversations with a few different individuals. One
My
of them
mistake.
is a
Okay.
person that does contracts for a living with the marshals, and he feels very confident we can get 130
I take that
without,
back.
with all of our current structure in place.
Okay,
That's
So
still
would you
that
use-
still doesn't get us up to where Mr. Parks' numbers point, right?
we're still a little ways from the 150.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying, if
But-
it's a short-term thing, it makes complete sense to build it to what we need it to be in a reasonable time frame. The question is, what is a reasonable time frame? Because I would argue 20 to 25 years is too far.
I
We
agree.
lose too much money in that time, but 7 years, I think really is a reasonable time frame. And so I think the question on this average inmate population or the crime rate per 1,000, I think that becomes an important calculation, because if we can see or be reasonably sure that our population is going to need a facility of two pods within the next 10 years, let's just say 10 years by the time it's constructed, then I think it makes sense to move forward with the plan now. But if the projections are saying, hey, you know what, it's gonna be till 2040 before we need that second pod, then I'd say we build a medical wing, do the remodel and maybe add one pod. Does that make sense? So it really kind of just depends on what we need and what we want our
And
taxpayers to
really
pay for.
tightening up these projections.
And how do we
really.
tie it to? So here's my opinion, and obviously one of 3 opinions here. But I think as we look at what we should do for the future, we should handle Weber County needs first. And
Agreed.
those numbers, again, I'm relying upon this, probably makes sense because of our crime rate. And we are different than Utah and Davis County.
Yeah, we
Now, a lot of
commit
that-
crime.
A lot of that's what Commissioner Harvey said, but a lot of that comes from a city we call Ogden that has a different demographic than Layton or Kaysville or Farmington.
Well, you
That's
gotta
not-
remember,
That's not gonna go away.
because you're up here, we commit crime. In Utah County, it's sin. So
Yeah,
it's
they're
just
different.
different.
They pay in a different way. You don't have to worry about building
Your
jails.
bishops are a lot more active down there.
Anyway, so
No,
You like that one, huh?
no.
we got a
No.
good busy.
What's nice is that the RFP was designed so that it's like a buffet.
Mhm.
They're gonna give
Yeah,
you
a
information
buffet.
as to all of them, or you can pick and choose as that information comes in, and we fine tune these numbers
Yeah.
over the next.
Well, that's what we're trying to accomplish today.
Right.
Is which path do we go down?
I agree, but just so you know, when we're looking at these average inmate population, the number of around 1,000 was with all those state and federal inmates, right? Now we weeded 2/3 of them out.
And that's weeded out
Right?
right here in. these
Yeah, and it's
numbers.
coming out,
9%.
and so we're approaching that same thing, so that's where it comes back to it's key, it's really a lot of this has to do with Kiesel.
Yeah.
If we're gonna keep Kiesel in the sense of the number of beds, it's gotta be moved, or we gotta reinvest in it and remodel that.
So
We
my
do need
opinion,
the
there's no
medical,
reason to put lipstick on a pig.
no,
And at that location, I don't think so.
Let me take my jacket off.
Well, yeah.
I agree, and I've been on enough tours
You're in
of
the
Kiesel
you're in the
that
midst of
I-
a proposition, what was
not-
that?
What's that?
You're in the midst of proposing something,
Now,
what is your thought?
I haven't, there is one option out there that's really hasn't been, I cut you off again, go ahead, John.
I was asking the commissioner to finish his thought, but
Oh,
because you're.
Well, I think you were headed the same way. So based upon information that I've just heard, if we're gonna base it on future Weber County needs, and i.e. what we need for Weber County, it makes sense for me not to go above one pod, but I think I could be
sure,
sold on the idea of one pod with the idea, let's take care of our Weber County. We can take care of the marshals or whatever.
as
We're
we
gonna,
have for tons of-
we're gonna call them, what I call them, we're gonna lease for a while, and then we make them move somewhere else after we supplant those with our Weber County people,
Mhm.
whatever that is.
Reese, you there?
He's trying to unmute.
So if you did, if.
Yes, I am trying to unmute. Thank you, Commissioner Harvey.
Hey, Reese, how many beds can we? I asked you this a week or two ago. Let's say that the linear section was torn down and we kept the pods over there. How many beds are in the pod section?
126 or 28.
Can that be adjusted? Up,
Sheriff, I know what you asked me. I can't think outside of those lines.
okay, that's
Yeah,
fair.
the answer is yes, they can be.
So-
I don't know how we do it. I don't know how
Yeah.
we do it. We would have to have
Well-
experts come in and tell us how we could get that done.
So when we went through the accreditation of ACA, they said that the pod section at Kiesel is in good shape,
And listen.
right? So
Yeah,
I'm,
when we were over there, they was
Right.
in good shape.
I-
It's just the tower that's a piece of
I'm
crap.
being, we want to make sure that we're transparent here. So, we can dismiss Kiesel, the old section, the linear is terrible. But that other section, and I asked Chief Reese, it's 124 bed capacity in those pods. But with some moving of stuff, maybe a light construction, can we add 50 beds? I don't know, right?
At Kiesel,
At Kiesel, that's what I'm saying, right? So
okay?
So maybe if we look at it this way, maybe there's that option, but we don't think based on the other facilities we've been in and with some of the preliminary discussion, we can add 50 beds, maybe 10, right? Maybe 20. But we don't know exactly. But the new old section is actually in good shape,
And I don't disagree with that.
right?
No, it is, and it's. Yeah, that's.
And there
exactly
will,
right.
if we do keep, if we do keep the pod section of it and we tear down the old, there's gonna be probably a few $1 million are gonna seal off the walls, and because some of it's integrated, we're gonna have to change that. So
Well, if
we
it's
don't know where
light,
that
though,
trade-off
if
is.
it's light duty, it'd be a lot less expensive than the proposed upgrade that you've got figured here, the replacement,
For
which is
Kiesel,
$15 million. I think you could tear the tower down and and I think you could salvage some of the stuff out of there. And even if you just put a floor to
replacement there, you'd get your 50 beds back.
But you gotta remember too, a lot of that equipment that's keeping that place running, like the heating and air,
Yeah,
they're still manual valves. I mean, we'd have to
Yeah.
gut it.
I think.
Yeah, no,
But structurally, it's fine.
So maybe that's just it. You just rebuild the tower or you tear it down and build another little something and you keep the bars and the metal. I don't know.
Now, we've already gone down this path before.
Okay.
And I'm just saying we have, and the decision was, yes, we could keep it. But if we build a new Kiesel, it's eventually we're gonna have to go to the Kiesel 10, 15 years, right?
Well, I thought those numbers for Kiesel was 15 to 18 million. For a remodel.
For a remodel was around 15 million plus.
Okay.
Yes, complete remodel.
Okay, well, I guess Commissioner Harvey brings up, I think we need to look at that. And then what time that buys us, if any. Still, in my opinion, long-term, we need to get out of Ogden City and out there. I mean, you've got transport costs.
I'm looking at, okay, let's start. I really like what I'm hearing about new Kiesel, new medical mental health wing, and a pod, and we get rid of Kiesel. Old Kiesel.
How many beds do you rent out, to the state?
100 right now. We don't rent to
Just
state.
100. I mean,
To the
and
feds,
to
yeah.
federal, but it's 100.
We're about 100 right
And you
now.
think, and Chief Reese said maybe possibly $130 a day,
We could negotiate to that.
possible. That's not a ton of money.
But we're doing this in good faith too, because you gotta remember, a lot of the chiefs are, when they talk about the jail, they think we care more about money and we're not taking care of our own. So these are just, right, it's a juggling act right now. But if we get rid of the marshals, I don't know what that, exactly how it's gonna affect us.
If you can renegotiate that, you're at 4.7 million, so that would be contributing to the pods, correct, Scott?
I mean, they've already got 100 right now, right?
That's what
So,
I'm saying.
so they've got to keep that
We
100.
gotta
Right.
keep it.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
keep it, but renegotiate that price up, and that gives you a little bit of money to contribute to the pods.
Unless you're losing money on that right now.
Well, I think the thing we need to keep in mind though is many of these people would be charged anyway state, and you're gonna be housing them anyway, whether you have the contract or not.
Sure, and I believe Chris Harrod was saying it was about 50%, right? So I mean, we can look at that, but that's what I'm saying, we need to build to Weaver County's need. Don't build planning to build something else. So I guess when I look at this, I see average inmate population was 1,000 in 2019. We're projecting in 2045 that it's gonna be slightly over 1,000. So if we tore down Kiesel, built a new Kiesel, a smaller number of beds, and then built one pod, that's basically.
That's an extra 10 million.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying inmate count, that's basically enough population or enough capacity to get us through 2045.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which I'm saying,
Yeah.
if that number is correct,
If
to
it's
me,
correct, yeah.
it looks like one pod plus a Kiesel and a medical wing and such remodel would be sufficient to get us through
Mhm.
2045. But I would like to go back and look at how the population projections came up, look at the calls for
Mhm.
service and make sure, because that, in my mind, is the key assumption. If that's off and we really need, 200 extra beds, well then, yeah, let's build that extra
Yeah.
pod.
But I also want to consider it in the revenue factor. Are there ways to bring in revenue to help offset the cost of building the pod? That's what I'm looking at too.
Sure, if we could lease them out for $130 a day, you're still losing money, but
Sure,
you're losing
but
less money
you're
than you
losing
would
less
otherwise.
Than what we
Yeah,
were, and it might justify doing that extra pod if we have a need for that pod.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Second extra pod?
No, just the one pod.
but that's what I'm saying. If it's, even the second pod, if it's 7 years before we need the extra pod, the second pod, then it
Yeah.
makes sense to build it now. If it's 20 years before we need that extra pod, which is kind of what this is showing, then it doesn't make sense to build it now.
Sure.
So it's that factor, and there's qualitative, commissioners, how good of a partner do we want to be with the marshals? I mean, it's not just a financial decision, but on the finances, it's a math equation of,
Yeah,
okay, is it 7 years? Yeah, 7 years, it makes sense.
And
Is
what
it
does it look like?
25 years?
Yep.
No, 25 is too long.
But to make that decision, this has to be accurate.
We have to get it a
This
little
has to be
more.
really accurate.
Well, it's gonna be an estimate
mean,
anyway, right?
I
'Cause
know
you
that,
don't know the
but
criminality of
like,
population. but-
this is just a straight line,
Yeah,
is all I'm saying.
that's what I said. I'd like to look at that and see.
I wanna see, yeah,
So I would
You're
like,
talking about the population inmate?
Yeah.
Or
this
the
one, yeah.
population
We were
average?
talking on the second
Yeah.
page. The second page, we were talking about the crime rate, and is that the one that's
So,
It
yeah,
has all the missing data,
so those two
Yeah,
are,
I
we don't know.
with more
It
data,
is.
this more accurate, this
Yeah.
projection right now, it's just a straight line.
And I wanna throw out
That's-
Yeah.
too, I wanna throw out too, that we haven't got the actual construction
I think
numbers
this is
yet.
based
These are
more on-
projections that John Vaughn and Scott have worked on
Which
together.
could, may or may not be
So-
true, but
Mhm.
Based on our,
Yeah,
study.
our feasibility, so we'll have, on the 29th of June, we will have some actual up-to-date construction numbers for you,
for all
for
scenarios.
all scenarios.
What you end up doing in this meeting then is discussing three things. One is, there are a bunch of legal documents that need to be prepared. There's that in Gilmore Bell, okay? And there's a lot of financial stuff, scenarios that we can refine over time and just get better data. But ultimately, you end up with a policy decision to say, based on the need that you're seeing, and if you don't have enough data on the need, it needs to be brought forward from whatever source you can find that data from, if you need that to accomplish that policy decision of need. Once you have that decision, the sooner the better, then we just plug it into, it sounds like you're either in scenario number 2 or
Three.
3, and you're kind of on the border, which is fine. It doesn't matter to us where you are, it will for the commissioners and the sheriff, but for us, we simply need to have you guys narrow it down. So if you're on the line between 2 and 3 in today's meeting, that goes a long
That's
ways.
helpful. I think we
It's
are.
really quite helpful. for us.
Is that what
That's
you're,
where I am.
that's
I'm
right.
trying to get you guys to narrow
I
down.
mean, I'm leaning toward 3, but
So,
I need to see a few more facts on
We
this
keep-
line right
yes.
here.
But as you guys are talking, don't discount the days served in our facility are getting a lot longer.
I gotta tell you,
Right?
I'm 2.5.
2.5?
Let me
that's
tell
what
you
we're
why.
looking at.
No,
We're all in
2.5.
agreement.
No, but I like keeping Kiesel. I don't wanna get rid of Kiesel.
Oh,
I think keeping the existing Kiesel, just the lower section, and tearing down the tower is the right answer.
but did you say 15 million to do that?
Not to tear down the building.
No, but no.
That's the
The
remodel
remodel.
with the existing linear towers.
Yeah,
Shouldn't
don't
we be-
get rid of that tower and just keep those beds, the pod.
Is it a math answer, or is it more of a subjective community is what's guiding your thought?
Community is a great point to that, but listen, Scott and I went over and walked through that. It's in great shape. And they've got, it's in great shape. Even if you turn down the tower area into just a simple little office area behind there or something back in there, and maybe it's where Jim Retallick goes for another sense of service for that area. That's a great area over there. I like keeping there's nothing wrong with the pod section of Kiesel.
No,
Maybe I
But
need
the
to go
decision
back
comes
to
down,
it.
are you allocating money toward there to work release?
I
or
think you
there?
could fix that up for less than $1 million over there.
But
I don't know what it's gonna cost down to tear down the other piece.
But it's the work release question that comes into play. Where do you expend the funds?
Anytime,
So agree.
How do we get data in front of you
anytime.
to
yeah.
get to that? to that
Well,
document?
I'm
We need to look
I'm
at
going
it.
to look at that. I'm going to look at that, but I want real numbers.
I was just saying, let's get some real numbers for that, if
And
that's
I'm
the
sorry,
direction
Tear
we're
that
gonna go.
tower down, tear that piece of
Okay,
crap tower
so
down.
if we kept the pods, which we're saying is 150 beds, right?
we need some
No,
to estimate the cost. to tear down the
124.
lot.
124 beds. What does that do for us in terms of, then we don't do the Kiesel, that eliminates the 14 million
So
here.
that one's planned for 200 beds. 195, 198.
Yeah, this one was large, that's what my point.
Mhm.
So we're gonna
But
lose.
it's not a hard facility as the
Right.
pods.
Okay,
But what you've concluded then is that the keys, is that the work release needs attention. It's just a matter of how much and where.
and where?
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine.
And I'd like to take a look at operations and
Let's
maintenance
say we need to-
there versus here.
You ought to go over to Kiesel on
I've seen it. No, I've been through it.
tear down that piece of crap tower and just keep the pods. The
So
newer old
There
section.
there will be some, right, but it's not just cutting it in half and we're done. We gotta finish
I know
all that
there's some
off.
sight lines and stuff that have to be fixed. and some of that other
Reallocations of
stuff.
power,
I would like,
conduits and.
I'd like a firm,
Yeah,
well, as close an estimate as we can get. What's it gonna cost to make that operation?
But all 4 of you then are all on that medical unit and remodel. Am I hearing that for sure?
I am.
Mm-hmm.
That could be paid out of our budget we have now,
Scott's
don't we?
If it were just the medical unit and remodel, then it would be a very different conversation. We wouldn't need likely to go out to finance, debt financing. we would issue a sales tax bond.
Right.
And use our fund balance and we would be done with it. We wouldn't go to a vote of the public.
That's
If
an
we were to
interesting
do
question,
option
just to
one.
stop right
Ooh,
there.
yeah.
And let's explore that for just a second.
Go back over to Keith.
Option one, not option two.
Right, if you just
Correct.
do number one, then
Yeah.
we take out a fund balance, a couple of projects that we've got, and then we bond for the remainder and stop.
And likely a sales
Bond
tax
for the
bond.
But
remainder.
a sales tax.
A sales tax bond.
Not a goal.
Yeah. a
We take
revenue
some
bond.
money out of savings and bond for the rest and take care of scenario number one.
Yes.
Okay, so that is an option. I'm testing the waters right now. I'm seeing that.
That's an option.
That's an option. Option two is that you remodel or build, work release, or figure that question out. That's option two.
Need some research.
And you keep thinking sounds like a good idea.
Well, so I feel personally, a work release, we either need to do option one, which was keep it where it is, or we can do option two for work release. I think work release is pretty important to the future.
Can I, yes. So about Kiesel, let's talk about community and future. The trends of the court are pushing all these people to pretrial. They're pushing it to these programs that are outside of the jail. They want them out of the jail,
Right.
like with all these things that are showing some data that it's successful. I don't know if Kiesel in its present condition can handle
Well,
that.
that's,
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you get data in 2 months or a month and a half to substantiate
Partial
the
renovation.
dollar amount and the need that it's gonna take care of.
We can try.
Is that what will help you?
I think so. Listen, there was also talk about building the second story at Kiesel on top of the pod, because that roof is so tall over there. He's doing some other kind of function.
We already got 2 stories inside the jail.
Inside the jail, but there's still a lot of room above that. You might could do something above that. What I'm trying to do is think of something, to move things around in your operation to be a little more smart, a little more lean
Once
On
you,
how we do
once
this,
you
and
move
I think there could be a way to make a little more lean decision. We keep talking about these other things, but the foundation and we also looked at the plans when we were there. We got the plans out and looked at the plans. And that existing pod that's there is built like, the foundation and walls are huge and they would accommodate, Scott was going out and meeting with some guy out on
He never
Rulon
came
White
through.
Boulevard. He never came through to Sperry to find out if that would accommodate a second or something more on top
what
of
would you
it.
put on top?
Well, you could do an office, or you could do something else, extra spaces, some type on top, but it wouldn't be that big we didn't think it would be that much different. There's some other options. I think if you use that lean approach, I think you'd have some other options, and this video courtroom thing that you're talking about, up doing that, so it's better and easier. I don't know.
Well, that's a must. We've got. to do
So
that.
maybe that's over there in the place of where the tower is now. And they could go over there and be there and then
No, the
move over
video
there.
court is where we bring all the bookings in, and that's where, that we can't move it over there.
No, you gotta have your,
Logistically, it's
you
gotta
gotta
be
have
out
your-
there.
It's right by that other, but it's
That's
another.
remodel,
one
right?
of the points of challenge in our decision path right now is we're running out of time.
yeah,
And if you go to option scenario one, we can handle that in-house. Let's just call it that.
Right.
Scott?
And 2, right?
No,
no,
just
we couldn't
one.
handle, we can't handle 2 in-house.
So I'm
We don't
just gonna
have-
speak for Scott. If we do option one, we can handle it in-house.
I'd
The
agree.
moment you explore other ideas, 2, 3, or 4,
Good bond.
we need to bond and we need to push the go button.
And the go button, what do you decide on that?
ASAP.
Soon.
Yeah,
So that's why we're meeting today is if you go past option one we can do in-house. 2, 3, and 4, we've got to go out and find bonding. It's likely that you're gonna encourage the sheriff to do a geo bond or tell him to do a geo bond.
Mhm.
When you tell him to do that, he's gotta prep for that and we all have to get ready. The moment you get past scenario 1, we don't have enough time to do it this year unless you lock and load on the decision soon, whether it's
What is soon?
in the next month or 2.
Okay.
30 days.
Well, we could,
We move towards.
we're moving towards it now. We're already moving towards the geo bond. We're already moving towards scenario 4 because we're getting the à la carte menu And then at that point, let's say we get the study back on July first and we say it's twice what we thought it was gonna be, we're gonna have to pare down something. We could have that discussion, or we could say it's half what we thought it would be. We can move forward with a higher thing.
So we have a July tenth deadline for you guys to make a decision on the à la carte menu. July tenth is the deadline.
But I think today what we're trying to do is say to you, is there anything out there that really bugs you that you don't have data about that's gonna help you make a decision? And so we've got a month to go out and find data, or a month and a half to go out and find it. Bring all that stuff in, but we can't figure out what it is until you say, here's all my problems with these discussions. This and this and this. For example, can we go to Kiesel and remodel? Great. If we not, do we take it out there? What are the bed counts gonna be? How's the marshal gonna play out for the financials? We've got a month and a half of doing side gigs to get more data for you. If we don't take advantage of those in the next week or two and activate them and get data back in the next month and a half, it's too late. So today we gotta say, if you're at 2.5, meaning we're not gonna do in-house, we're not just gonna do the medical and the remodel, but we are gonna do something at Kiesel or out there.
Which would require a bond.
Potentially, we're gonna do that new one pod. If we're gonna do at least one pod, then it has to be lined up. We've got to start working toward it. Do you feel comfortable getting us lined up more and more over the next coming few days? What's the data you're missing? Let's go hire it. Let's get it in front of you. And if we're missing anything, let's get it today and get started. Will you probably be one pod? If we're one pod, GeoBond, off we go. We just need better data.
If we're Kiesel,
Question,
location, we're GeoBond.
point of clarification. Sorry. It's been a great day.
So I'm trying to force to a conclusion because we need data and we need.
No, we
to
need
help you.
Two questions.
You need a direction.
We need direction.
If we go to bond, are we taking it out for the entire thing?
Yeah, that was my
Or,
question.
or do we pay for the
The
medical
in-house
in-house anyway, and then bond on top of that? I've heard Scott Park's theory on why we should just do the whole thing.
I would take off the table, if you're not gonna do number one, take off the table any money from capital projects.
Yeah.
And we bond the whole thing.
Okay.
We need, the reason why I'm saying that is because you have a Golden Spike Event Center that with a huge
Okay.
question mark, but it has at least 7 zeros after it,
And the
right?
difference in the $31 versus the 93 with the 10 million is cents on the dollar.
Okay,
Makes no sense.
next question. Can the person that we need the data information on Dean Kiesel, can that be done with our own staff?
No.
We have somebody like,
Contract it out.
not Scott,
Mendoza.
not Mendoza, but the other guy, the big guy.
Bill Ross.
No, the other bigger guy.
I'm just speaking on behalf of Sean right now.
What's
I'm
his
not sure
name?
we got the
No, we don't have the bandwidth
fire
right now.
part.
He doesn't have any,
We don't.
he doesn't, he's
Okay.
overmatched.
But I can probably find someone for you.
I
I can
think-
probably find someone. for
So
you.
we
you're
probably
saying an
get somebody.
architect to look at Kiesel and see if we
Yeah.
could cut it in half and what it would take to do that.
No, we need an outside person. to
Why
come
don't we
in and
just
do that.
do that now?
So,
Just do it.
but
Get it done.
Sheriff, and I'm fully on board with getting some numbers on Kiesel, but I think we need to also look at the long-term vision. Is Kiesel location where we want to be?
I
Because
don't,
if
I
it's
mean,
not, then
so
move
let me
it.
be
That's the
candid.
thing.
My grandpa taught me a long time ago. There's a
You're
thing in real
talking-
estate called location.
if you're talking long-term, I think we should even spend an ounce on Kiesel, get rid of it, move out.
Okay.
Long-term, you're asking me long-term,
I'm
right?
talking, yeah,
You're talking about saving some money, spending this, saving that, get us by for 20 years or so, then yes, let's stay with Kiesel.
just because we have a brick house that's well-built, it's got good bones, and it's in a poor location, doesn't make sense real estate wise.
Honestly, yeah,
So-
reason is,
But it's where all the services are. That's what I'm having. a
but
hard time with.
I do support Ogden and what they're trying to do downtown. I think for our community,
serv-
that's the better move.
Well, AT&T
I
and
do.
the courts and the release and everything else, all the services are down, everybody walks with, the bus stations, the transit, they're all downtown.
But we're talking work release, so.
Yeah.
We're
this
talking
is
work
work
release.
release.
This is isolated. This is just work release.
These are the people that
Our-
go to jail, that go to jail at night.
Yeah, our facility does not have anything to do with all those other
Yeah.
facilities.
Those other
So
groups
could
don't
I-
have-
could I address-
Work release.
Reese, go ahead.
To address Commissioner Harvey's concern, part of that community release, if we were to build a new community release facility, part of that would be office space that would be flexible office space for the likes of We Were Human Services, for the housing authority to be able to have some office space that we are able to rotate in and out, for the different clinics to be able to come and visit their clients there. We would be able to dedicate office space for APMP with really a minimal amount of burden on the part of the county. It's a relatively small amount of office space, but
Hey, I get it. Maybe I need to think differently. Maybe 1 and 2 as you presented today is right, but we still as a county don't give it up. Maybe what we do is we repurpose it over to more beds for Kevin Eastman or something like that. Maybe that's what that is.
I'm not opposed to that, but what I want to concentrate on is what's the best outcome for the sheriff and this county for the future.
So can I add this too?
Location.
Let me add this too. We talk about community and long-term. What's the best handoff?
Yeah.
The jail is right there, in and out, and those other facilities and groups, they're all right there. So you talk
Kevin
about-
Eastman's right there too.
he wants his group down there too. And if we do that access center, we have it all right there.
Yeah. I just
An
think
opioid- hey, an
the more
opioid-
centralized you can keep, the more efficient you can become with your
Yes.
labor. And all the other
We're
services.
reducing a lot of long-term costs if we have to move people back and forth to Kiesel,
I look
we
at-
can walk them.
I look at transport, just what you told me
Yes.
4 years ago when I came in, what you paid for transport that's quite a bit of money.
So are we okay to bypass this discussion and estimates for Kiesel? Is that what I'm hearing?
Say that again.
I'm okay with that.
Are you okay if we just act as if we're moving Kiesel, like we're done with old Kiesel and we need new Kiesel? Is that what I'm hearing?
If you move the
I could be
services out
sold,
there.
maybe sold that. Your little thing about your grandpa.
Well, he was a smart guy.
Location.
Yeah, you're good to go.
Thanks, Sadly.
And if the pod thing comes up, then are you comfortable moving from scenario 2 to scenario 3, or what do you need to help make that decision?
I want what Scott was talking about. I want to know the projection of
Yeah.
how long we'll be leasing those pods. And I don't want to overbuild. That, your piece that you're talking about, that's all, that's what I want.
And so
Would that be
Sheriff,
helpful to you?
I'm not.
yeah, if Sheriff, if you would get me in touch with it, whether it's Chief Reese who's doing the data, or whoever, I'd like to go over the actual data and, I mean, whether it's dollars or people, I'm comfortable with the data analysis. I'd like to look at that piece and see if we can come up to a conclusion as to population estimates and crime rate per 100,000 per thousand, and I think that would give us our answer. It becomes a math.
So are you on with 2 or 1, or which way you leaning? Based upon that additional information,
2 or 3.
2 or 3, okay, but not excuse me, when I said 2, not 2 pods, either,
Oh, 2.
either medical and 1 pod.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, unless,
Wait a minute.
I mean, unless,
You mean Kiesel too?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they're saying
He was talking-
between
he was talking
scenario
about
2 and
pods.
scenario.
So we're really talking about 1 or 2 pods.
that,
the whole
so yeah,
package.
if you can show us that.
Yeah.
That we need 2 additional pods within 15 years.
yeah, I
Then
think
I might be looking at 2.
that's,
Yeah, and that's what I'd like to do, and I think that's what, and I've talked to Chief Reese about this too. I think,
that's the one that makes
I
sense.
think we've got plenty of data for the medical unit and the remodel. I think we can support the work release. I think we just need to go back and do an additional analysis, whether it's 1 pod or 2 pods, to be able to
Yep.
support it and sell it to the public.
That's where I am.
Some data that
Okay.
might be useful.
You're there.
I was talking to Johnny Miller with USIP last week, and I was telling him about the RFP that's going out. He said that Iron County, you may have already explored all this, but Iron County, I believe either they're going out or they have gone out for a bond to expand their jail or build a new one. And he says they've done a solid job, and so they may have contact, I don't know. They may have contacts of firms that have compiled data. There's probably data that overlaps. It's not gonna be the same, different population, but there could be, equations and tables that we could use. I've heard Beaver County is doing the same thing. He said, do not use the Tooele County model. Where they build it and then we buy it back,
So as a conclusion, then, you've all
the
agreed.
contractors.
Option 1, scenario 1 is good, scenario 2 is good. Moving it out to 12th Street, if all the services can move out there too, to satisfy
I
that.
like that part of it.
Yeah, and the services are gonna go, the services will follow this model. I would rather have them follow us versus we follow them.
Yes, and if,
Yeah.
If
10
what,
seconds?
yes, I need 10 after that.
If Scott gives adequate information to make sure that the pod scenarios can be isolated and determined, you'll probably be around pod 1, potentially pod 2, but pod 1.
I think where we're at, unless we can be taking what Commissioner Bolos said, unless that you can show a direct correlation between the
Yes.
second pod and the number of years it's gonna require to start utilizing that, we're gonna be at one pod.
Sorry.
10 seconds on this issue. If we're looking at putting Kiesel out there, we need to explore the option of purchasing land,
Of what?
purchasing land,
Malin,
Malin,
Okay.
Claude.
We're on, yeah, we've had some
Now,
discussion.
now, we think we can do it without it, but we'll be scrunching. But I think it's worth exploring. We're gonna do a site visit, but there's too much snow, so we need to revisit doing a site visit.
So I can kick Sean into gear again. We were there, we were ready to do, and then
It snowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't see the property.
I would feel comfortable saying, I know we can get at least, what's that lower section, 1.5 to 2 acres?
Yeah, we would probably need that.
I think we can get a couple acres without issues.
We need to do that anyway.
Yeah,
That's
So
good
just
for 50
make sure
years
that's
from
out
now.
there.
that's out there.
Land banking.
That's on the agenda. John Bond, does that clear things up a little bit?
A lot. Thank you very much. And
Thank
this
you,
has been
John.
very helpful, so thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you for
We make sure Scott and Chris is happy,
Sure, I think I know my assignment.
and then Stephanie's happy.
Pete, Bruce, do you have anything?
No, I haven't.
No, I'll reach out to Scott Park and get
Oh,
him and Nina in my schedule all matched up and get data mining deeper. So this has been very helpful for me as far as knowing what data I need to dig into farther. Thank you very much.
Yeah, same with the committee. The committee will meet next week and then we'll report back to you guys in 2 weeks. And we're gonna stay on this schedule, so we'll just keep you updated on our schedule.
Stephanie, who's on your committee? I didn't even know this committee existed.
Finance Committee.
Yeah, this
Oh,
is
okay.
actually a different committee. We created, it's called the Project Management Committee.
That's what I see. I don't know anything about
So
the
it is,
PMC.
myself, John Wallen, Chris Crockett.
Reduce them.
Okay.
Brandon Quinney and Chief Reese is on this committee, you know.
For the,
Result of the-
you want to be involved with that?
Yes, you're welcome to be on that committee. Oh, Sean Wilkinson's on the committee also.
I've got to go. I apologize, I gotta go.
So do I at 3:15.
At 3:15?
Mine was at 3:15 also.
Yeah,
What
same.
meeting do you guys have next? I got one more issue
Thanks,
for you.
baby.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Don.
You've got some direction.
I have one more issue
Balls?
outside of the jail stuff.
Okay,
We need to talk about.
okay.
House Bill 61. I talked about this, last time I was here. It's about the creation of a coordinator for the responsibility of the sheriff.
Is this the school district? Is this Wilcox's bill?
Yes.
Okay,
So I just want you to know, I've reached out to some professionals and I've also reached out to, Sarah Swan to have her look at it, and with what we're seeing in the bill, what kind of position this is gonna require, who's gonna be running it, what kind of a pay that it will be, and what kind of time we think we're gonna spend on it, but I may need an additional position in the sheriff's office.
An unfunded mandate by the
Yep.
legislature.
Yep, so
Bunch of horse crap.
look at Wilcox, yeah, he should be doing that.
I'm just saying,
I
maybe,
agree.
hopefully by next, time we meet, I'll be able to have the data on that. I'm gonna say, hey, I need, a new position created. May,
I thought the state was kicking in some money on that.
it's $75 million, but it's designated for equipment and stuff like, software to help gun detection and so forth. The way we read it, it's not,
With all due respect, if that ends up being the case, that ought to be a position requested in our budget hearings.
Yeah, absolutely.
so. Next year,
If, well, after you get your data and you find that you do need the position, I'd
When's
like to
the,
see that in the budget hearing.
I'll find out.
When's the implementation?
what's the effective date?
I'll find
it's July 1, I think.
Well, we just won't be on time.
No,
So,
You know,
I mean, I
heck
don't
with
mind,
him. You can't put that on.
so hold on.
I agree.
yes, we can put it in the future budget, but I might need to go to Park or you guys and say, look, we're gonna take temporarily 2 positions from corrections, because we're down 43,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah, I wanna check the bill out first
Because you
and
have.
talk to Wilcox. We may need to work it on interim. Cause it's not right that they don't fund this, at least give it
Yeah.
a resource.
It's preliminary, so we're still in the trying to find out what this bill means, but I'm just
Well,
saying,
that's what
be
I'm-
That's what
prepared.
I'm saying.
Do you want me to do a summary on this?
Even if we sit down.
I'm
and
worried
look,
about our budget this next year.
Yeah.
Got back to me. You can have
You
this
and me
part.
both.
Thank you.
HBC.
It's not gonna be like it has been.
House Bill 60.
Spending's down, the number of housing starts are down, the new houses.
Yeah,
We're gonna have it all. It won't be like it has been.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tough.
We're not doing a tax increase.
No,
Thought I brought it, I didn't.
I wouldn't want that.
So. Okay, what else,
Thank you for your
Sheriff?
time.
Stephanie, let's get to the bottom of that bill.
Yeah. I'm pulling that right now. Oh, let's figure out how it's done.
I was gonna assign
You
one
want-
of my team members to do a summary of it.
Great. How many for me?
What can I do for you?
Oh, you got
First
another half
today?
hour? Let's see, if you got a snow plow,
I got a snow blower.
snow blower.
Snow plow, truck,
backhoe.
something that's not an international.
I could teach you about open meeting.
Oh, you should really learn about that. You really should.
No, you don't.
Hey, do you want any time on the agenda tomorrow from the sheriff's department?
For what?
For,
Department head? I already asked Shelley to put me on there.
okay, you're on there?
Yeah, I'm doing well, it's about the same thing we did yesterday at our luncheon on Friday about lean.
Okay, Lean. You got Harvey all psyched about that, I know that.
That's good. It was really, and Sharon was there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she,
it was good.
Mayor,
I was gonna say George.
Mayor,
yeah.
Mayor Rolos.
Commissioner Balls, well, this will be her 3rd time hearing this, and then it'll be Harvey's 2nd year first.
Okay.
So, it's cool stuff.
The Lean,
Yeah, and I think the county ought to hire somebody to officiate throughout the whole county.
okay, let's listen. I'll listen.
Be a facilitator for the county.
I'm all ears.
I'm just getting nervous about spending any money because I think we're headed for a budget. I think.
But we
these
could
are gonna
save
be
a ton
lean.
through this, right?
Lean.
It's wonderful stuff.
Okay, save a ton. That's good.
Okay,
That's right.
Thank
Save a
you.
ton.
motion to adjourn.
Yeah, that's a move second.
You got a second? All those in favor?
All right.
All right, we're adjourned, thanks.